liberty, and justice for all.
Amen. Play ball.
You see most of the 30 speakers you're going to hear from over the next couple of hours. We've got some competition from another event that's happening behind us. We're going to try to make this very fast today, very energetic. Our first speaker, you know him from the internet. You know him from his interest in American gun ownership. You know him from his service to our country, Eric Blanford.
Patriots! Oh, come on. Y'all can do better than that. Patriots! Wait a minute. I heard you, but I don't think they heard you. Patriots! I see a lot of my brothers and my sisters have shown up here in D.C. today to stand up for our rights. We're a diverse group of patriots here who care deeply about our republic and about the rights guaranteed to us by the Constitution. One of the most fundamental rights is that of self-preservation. As Americans, our right to self-preservation is expressed through our Second Amendment. It's important that our government remember just how important that right is and to reaffirm it. And that's what we're doing here today, is sending them a reminder. Firearms are not just for hunting, like the opponents of freedom would have you believe. Firearms owned by citizens are the tools of a free people. They're the great equalizer against both outside enemies seeking to conquer us or a government that turns tyrannical. For years, clever wordsmiths who want to take away our firearms have continuously and carefully crafted frightening and false terms such as assault weapons to scare people away. To scare people away from owning guns, and they've worked to pass more laws to infringe on our rights day by day. We've allowed these people to undermine our sovereignty and our security in the name of perceived safety. The illusion of safety is nothing more than a wolf in sheep's clothing. Like Benjamin Franklin said, those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. And we, the people, are tired of giving up our liberty. When the anti-gun establishment asks us to compromise on gun rights, we receive nothing in return. Lately, this style of politics has been the norm on the Hill. Politicians from both sides have engaged and worked to reduce, even our outright destroy our rights systematically. To preserve our rights and freedoms, we're forced to pick a political side and hope for the best. Sometimes we still lose. The side we pick doesn't always end up being on our side completely. We have to roll the dice. Anyone who disagrees with giving up these liberties are falsely labeled domestic terrorists. Our founding fathers were viewed the same way. The principles and values that made this country great are passed off as antiquated. And who needs any of these old-fashioned ideas and freedom, they say. It's time to move on, they say. And in many ways, we've lost our way as a nation. It's the part where I turn the page. Thank you. We've fallen into the deadly traps of complacency and political correctness. We've allowed those who dislike us to divide us by race and class, when all Americans should be united when it comes to preserving the Second Amendment and advancing liberty. We've lost our fire and our courage, and we've allowed weak people with pen and paper to legislate away our core values and our way of life. It's a tough pill to swallow, but many Americans have been persuaded to reject the truth and instead substitute an emotional response. Emotions should never be used to drive politics and policy. Despite all their hard work to steal our freedoms, we're still a great nation, and we have accomplished much. Despite all their work done to steal our freedoms, hard times built this nation, and I'm afraid more hardship will follow us to defend our way of life. We're presently engaged in a cold war of censorship and suppression as the anti-gunners seek to restrict us in every way they can. Our voices are being substituted by false news. While there are many forces working against us, I'd like to propose a couple of solutions, if you'll allow me. Number one, thank you. Number one, a finite sunset on all gun laws. Make Congress work and use data to back up whether laws need to be passed again or whether they need to go away for good. A great example is the sunset of the 1994 assault weapons ban. The data released proved that the ban had very little to no effect on crime. That data proves that we need finite sunset on all gun laws. Congressional term limits. No more career politicians sucking us dry and passing law after law just to get reelected. Politics have become a ladder that many want to climb to achieve success, wealth, and status. These politicians have lost touch with the needs of the people. We need to take a closer look at lobbying on the Hill. Remove financial incentives from politics. Our rights should no longer be a bargaining chip that's gladly tossed around to the whims and wishes of a corrupt political elite. The Statue of Liberty holds a torch as a beacon of hope that there's a better world for us on the horizon. Guns are the teeth of liberty that protect our rights and keep men and women free from tyranny and oppression. If we allow those that are against us to undermine the Second Amendment, our entire republic is for nothing. The lack of representation for gun owners on the Hill is troubling, and our founding fathers are probably rolling over in their graves. Thank you for your time. Thank you for attending. Stay strong. Keep the faith. I'll see you on the correct side of history.
Eric Blanford, IV8888 on YouTube. Thank you, Eric. Our next speaker, you might have seen her when she told Congress, if you pass these laws, I will not comply. She's a former police officer, a three-gun monster. Her name is Diana Muller. She runs the Washington, D.C. project. And Diana, take it.
So he kind of introduced me, but if you aren't familiar with who I am, my background is a police officer with Tulsa Police Department for 22 years. I retired 5 years ago. Yes, I do know sticks. Does anybody watch Live PD? Yay, Tulsa. I retired to focus on being a professional shooter and a brand ambassador. So that's kind of what I do, but about 4 years ago, it was put on my heart to start this D.C. project. 50 women, one from every state, going to Washington, D.C. to meet our legislators as gun owners and Second Amendment supporters. It's a nonpartisan educational effort. The Second Amendment is a constitutional issue. It is not a partisan issue. Good job, good job. Okay, so one of the things I wanted to go first, because we have a rally at the DC Project every year. We have a very small rally, but what I've figured out of people that are more conservative in nature is that we don't know how to make a scene. Okay? So he did it pretty good, but I'm going to go over some rally rules that you guys can use the rest of the day and make sure that we have a successful, effective rally, okay? First of all was making noise, and you guys did a pretty good job, okay? But I don't want any golf claps. This is us. This is golf clapping. No golf clapping. I want you to yell when all these speakers are behind me. They're going to say something, and then at the very end, they're going to get very loud, and then they're going to pause. And that's when you go crazy, like somebody just won the World Series! Woo! Go Nats! We got any Nats fans here, maybe? All right, the second one is a little bit more difficult for us. The second one is chanting. Chanting is way out of our comfort zone, but we're going to practice it real quick, okay? So I really didn't know what chant to do, but I think I'm going to go with I will, and then you say I'm gonna break it into you guys so it's more like a cheer, and then you can go on to chanting later, okay? So I'm gonna say I will. You guys say. That was super weak. One more time. I will. Oh, that sounded really good. So let's do it again. I will. Oh, that's so cool. All right. I did have a message. What I wanted to tell you guys, what we can do as a community. After I testified, first of all, let me tell you that it was a tremendous honor to represent all of your voices on Capitol Hill. I felt the magnitude of the responsibility. Very honored, very honored. But I wanted them to know, that the firearms industry is # doing something. Doing something! Yay! So I told them about projects like Project Child Safe, about the Kid Safe Foundation that yesterday I found out was going to be in all the Cabela's and Bass Pro stores. Woo! Where's it? Those are teaching our kids how to be safe with firearms. We also told them about Walk the Talk America, which is a suicide prevention program. We also talked about School Shield, or I did. They didn't. They listened, I guess. School Shield and Faster Saves Lives. These are our school security programs. These are programs that the firearms industry is doing something. When these people cry to Congress to do something, they really mean what they want to do. Congress is doing something. They are doing something, and the firearms industry is doing something. You guys are quick studies. All right, so the other thing I wanted to talk to you guys about is how's I doing on time?
You're short. Hurry.
Okay, education. I had after I testified, I had a conversation with a family member, and they said, well, I really don't mind extended background checks. And I said, okay, this is the problem I have with extended background checks. I went over red flag laws. I went over universal background checks and gun-free zones. So have an answer. I didn't say I will not comply because I was being rude or disrespectful. I said I will not comply because it's an unconstitutional law, okay? So one more time. I will! All right, I'm done.
Diana Muller, ladies and gentlemen. Our next speaker comes from the Firearms Policy Coalition. You know him from Coffee with Craig on YouTube, Mr. Craig DeLuz.
You know, I got to tell you, it's amazing to see each and every one of you here. I live in the state of California, so whenever I have a chance to leave California, I very much enjoy it. It's great to be around patriots who love their country and love the values upon which it was founded. The Firearms Policy Coalition is a Second Amendment civil rights advocacy organization. And I think that's important to understand because I think we so often lose the idea of what civil rights are. We've allowed it to be co-opted. We think we are politicians in this building that believe that civil rights are special rights for special people. For example, they don't have a problem with certain people having firearms. That's why they like things like discretion, and they like things like background checks and things like permits. You know, those things where they take your right and then they charge you to get it back, and then they control it and try to take it away at any whim. Folks, the right to keep and bear arms, civil rights, are the rights that are available to each and every one of us. Male, female, black, white, Muslim, Christian, Jewish, it doesn't matter, Republican, Democrat, civil rights are the rights that are available to each and every one of us. Also, these rights are not given to us by government. They are endowed to us by our Creator. And to recognize that, we write a thing called a Constitution. And in that, they have a Bill of Rights, where those civil rights are enumerated. And this one is so important, they made it the second. Something I never thought I would do at a Second Amendment rally is quote Dave Chappelle, where he said the First Amendment is first for a reason, and the second one is second in case the first one doesn't work out. We have to stop allowing the Second Amendment to be treated as a second-class right. You have politicians who believe that it's not a right, it's a privilege. Or it may be a right, but it's not a right. You know? I mean, even justices treat it foul. They have these different, levels of scrutiny that they use. And if it's the First Amendment, oh, it's strict scrutiny. This is serious. But when they get to the Second Amendment, it's rational basis. Now, for those of you who aren't attorneys, and I am not an attorney, and I did not sleep in a Holiday Inn Express last night, but I learned the rational basis is this. When they look at a law to determine whether or not it's constitutional, what they say is there any good reason why someone would do this? And the worst part about it is that the defendant, the person you're arguing against in court, doesn't even have to come up with that reason. He can just make it up in his head. That is how poorly the Second Amendment is treated. The Declaration of Independence talks about rights being inalienable, right? But to secure those rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. Let me ask you a question. Who's the governed?
We are.
I'm sorry. I'm confused. Who are the governed?
We are.
Folks, it is up to us to use those civil rights to fight and make sure that we stand up for the rights, not just for ourselves, but for the next generation and the generation after that. We will be judged in history by what we do this day.
Amen.
This is a fight for our civil rights, and if we do not use them, we will lose them. Thank you very much.
Amen. Thank you, Craig. Craig DeLuz, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much, Craig. You know, we all know what's going on in Venezuela right now. We say that can't happen here. Well, a couple of years ago, they were saying that in Venezuela. Our next speaker comes from Venezuela. She's an American citizen. She's an Olympian. You might know her from Top Shot. She's a competitive shooter, and she is awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Gabby Franco.
Thank you, everybody. The common phrase, you don't know what you have until you lose it, was a little bit different for me. I didn't know what I was missing until I found it, the Second Amendment. Yes, you heard well. I felt like I found a treasure. I was thrilled to emigrate to a country that provided awesome opportunities for my success. But the idea to own and bear arms to protect myself, to continue practicing my sport, to even fight against a tyrannical government or dictatorship for that matter, that was the icing on the cake. You see, I was born in Venezuela, a country where the right to own and bear arms does not exist. Hence, the government, when they saw it fit, they started imposing gun control laws. And that was to control gun violence. And that sounds similar because that's their favorite excuse. And let me tell you something. While crime continued to rise to levels never seen in Venezuela, Venezuelans are still waiting for criminals to follow the gun control laws. As absurd as it sounds, people accept gun control law ideas because gun-grabbing politicians convince them that people cannot control their emotions, that people are not intelligent enough to learn, that people are not responsible beings, because of course they are above all of us, right? But last but not least, they convince people that the government will protect them. Most, if not all, citizens disagree with these generalized statements. However, they end up accepting because having the government protecting them seems appealing. That is how citizens, through gun control, unmindfully submit to the government's force. Fellow citizens, please hear me well. I am talking to you as an American, as a parent, as a daughter, family member, friend, spouse, neighbor, and student. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right to own and bear arms shall not be infringed. Gun-grabbing politicians more than ever are revealing their true intentions. And it seems like their oath to support the Constitution is now part of it. If they believe they can break their oath for one amendment, what guarantee us they will not break their oath once more to change the Constitution to how they see fit? Let me tell you something, there's none. I lived it. We the people are here to remind gun-grabbing politicians and their advocates that the right to own and bear arms shall not be infringed. That's right. That's why we are here today, because none of them will be there to protect us when a criminal decides to break into our home, to attack us in the middle of the night, or when a rapist decides to... He wants to satisfy his needs no matter who he hurts. Remember this, true freedom becomes a luxury when citizens are disarmed. I believe most people in the U.S. are proud Americans who enjoy the great opportunities and freedoms we all have. However, I also believe that many have forgotten how important it is to keep defending those liberties, even when it seems they are protected. Yes, sir. We the people are here to remind gun-grabbing politicians that the Constitution must be respected and they must carry out their oath of office to protect and defend the Constitution. And no, our freedoms and our rights are not negotiable. Friends, let me make something very clear. I'm not here to warning you about what control can do to our country. I'm here to telling you I'm with you right now, ready to defend our Constitution, because I'm not willing to let these people prevent all of us. Sorry, it's emotional. I'm not willing to let them get away with preventing us law-abiding citizens of the United States from exercising our God-given rights.
That passion that you saw from Gabby is a part of the DC Project Foundation, and there are representatives from all over the country, women that do great work here in DC and back in their home states. Kellyanne Pigeon is one of the ladies at the DC Foundation Project, and she's coming up next to talk to you about her passion in regard to Second Amendment. She's with Armed and Feminine.
I got a little choked up with Gabby there. She's one of my teammates, and she's awesome, and I need to recompose myself a little bit here, too. How many of you have been taking notice of what's been going on in Hong Kong? Of course, this crowd would. This crowd would. So a few weeks ago, I went to the very first Rod of Iron Freedom Festival up on the campus of Carr Arms, and it was a great event, by the way. And while I was there, I met a ton of people from around the globe. There were folks from Germany and the UK and Korea, China, Japan, and every time I talked to any one of them, they all echoed the exact same theme. And they basically said, you are so lucky to have a Second Amendment in America. We're, lucky, right? We're at the mercy of our government when it comes to arms. So think about that. We are so lucky to have a Second Amendment. Well, I don't call it luck. I call it proper planning by our forefathers. They never wanted the American people to live through what they did under a tyrannical government. So, how many, I know this is little because I was on standby, didn't make a big one. How many of you remember seeing a picture like this? This fella from Hong Kong who was holding up during a rally, we need a Second Amendment in Hong Kong, right? Well, and I don't know how these guys are connected over at CAR, but they got that guy to come to the Freedom Festival. Yeah. So, you know, he was up there and telling us about how they were fighting, and I'm like, these people don't have arms of any kind. They're fighting for their freedom against the government and against the military with umbrellas. Umbrellas. Could you imagine this gun group putting them down and going with umbrellas? So as this guy took the stage to address the crowd, everything sort of fell silent. Everybody was sort of hanging on his words, and I know I sure was. And so what I want to do is give you some quotes from his speech and give a little interpretation of what we in America might hear may be facing. And he chooses his words very carefully. And so his first quote was, "We want democracy and we want freedom." Amen, absolutely. This is something that they've never had and they want. And could you imagine, like, we take that for granted here. We take that for granted. We're like, it's my freedom, it's my right, I can do that. And it's something that we need to be clinging to, folks, because it may be coming closer to an end than we think. His next quote was, and I love this one, "Our education has brainwashed us. We cannot understand the Second Amendment as a people. We think that it is wrong or inappropriate for the people to bear arms," unquote. Brainwashed. He knows this. He recognizes this. This is what their government does from the time they are small children, right? Is this starting to sound familiar to some of you? We're hearing this in the debates over and over and over, right? You hear it over and over again. You start to believe it from the anti-crowd. Well, we're not going to believe it. We're not going to let the brainwashing continue to happen to our next generations either. That's when you yell. Next quote. "I really hope that the people of Hong Kong can become strengthened and understand the American Constitution and the Second Amendment is a God-given right and is not to be infringed," unquote. He totally, amen, he totally gets that the 2A is inalienable and is not granted by that government, but by God. And many in our government seem to forget that. And remember, the Constitution says what it says, and it doesn't say what it doesn't say. Next quote. "We're also saying that when tyranny becomes a reality, it is our duty to rebel against it, but we don't have the means." This dude's going to be a 3%er, and he is reaching out to thousands of his countrymen because it is a duty of country to rebel. Duty of country. How many of the 150 million gun owners in America are going to stand up for duty of country? That's going to come. That's going to come, right? So here you are. These folks have no arms of any kinds. They have umbrellas, and they're fighting with their hearts and soul. Meanwhile, I'm listening to this little guy, and all I want to do is feed him and hug him and give him guns. But I know he can't take them back with him, right? Next quote. "It's really important for America to treasure this God-given right and not to give it away." Very important here. "The day you lose it, the next day you will be like Hong Kong. We are trying to make our voices heard, but the government feels no need to heed the voice of the people because they own all the force and the people are disarmed." Scary stuff, folks. Really scary stuff. So that means use it or lose it, right? The moment we allow every little infringement of a law, that incrementalism that I like to talk about, the sooner we're going to lose all our gun rights and our power. And the rest is going to be resting with the government. And hey, they're not listening. They're not listening to us now. We've got to get louder, and we need to make them listen to us. We are not going to be silent majority anymore. No more. Last quote. "I can see in America that the people are so privileged because of the Second Amendment. You have the means to resist tyranny," unquote. We are privileged, more so than any other people in the world. We have the means to resist tyranny. Now, certainly, of course, we don't want that to be the case, but we also don't want to be the next Hong Kong. Stick to your guns, gun lobby. I will.
There were a lot of people involved in putting this Second Amendment rally together. The organizing committee has mostly been anonymous. All of the funding to allow this to happen, to allow us to have the space, the stage, the speakers, to get everybody here today is anonymous. There's no organization that's taking credit for that. There's no company that's sponsoring that. This is concerned American gun owners. This is every attendee, every person who's watching this live streaming, every person who shares a video. But one of our organizing committee members that's been out in the public that really helped put this together, this would not have happened, would not have had these speakers recruited, and could not have been put together without this next speaker. He runs the Firearms Coalition, and he is gun rights advocacy royalty. Jeff Knox.
Good afternoon, gun lobby. I start every speech with those words. My father did the same for the last 40 years, and I'll tell you what, it's not a hollow thing. You are the gun lobby. When the founders put this republic together, they looked at it and they said, what do we do? And one of the really magnificent things about our founding is that they didn't just write the rules for the way they were living and what they had at the time. They set their sights higher. They set their ideals on paper, and they put it down on paper, and we have been trying to live up to that standard ever since. They gave us a challenge, and part of that challenge was we the people. It's not these folks who work in the building behind me. They're not the government. We are. Those guys down on Waples Mill Road, or Eric Pratt, or me, or any of the other gun groups, we're not the gun lobby. You are. I want every one of you, let's do the little chant thing. I am the gun lobby. I am the gun lobby. And the next thing is we are the gun lobby, aren't we? We are the gun lobby. We are the gun lobby. Gun lobby, let me tell you something. We got some work to do. Beto O'Rourke has dropped out of the Democrat primary. But he's not the only one that thinks that way. So I've got a message for anyone who is thinking the way that Beto was thinking. And that message is, hell no, you will not. We're 100 million. I read somewhere recently that the hunting licenses in Wisconsin outnumber the largest army in the world. One state. I don't think the quote was true, but that there's a gun behind every blade of grass. Well, you bet your bottom dollar there would be. Folks, when we decided to put this thing together, I can't tell you how many people told me it couldn't happen, it wouldn't happen. Gun owners won't show up. Rob Pincus and I, we said, here, hold my beer. And we did it. We brought it together. We've got you here, and we are so proud of you for being here. We've got members of the Socialist Gun Club to members of the Trump Forever to everybody in between. We are America. We are the gun lobby. We the people, and we will not stand for tyranny. I'm Jeff Knox of the Firearms Coalition. Thank you very much. And at this moment, I've got a special treat for you. A very dear friend of mine Boogaloo. These guys want to do the Boogaloo, by golly. I wanted to get the music. You should have brought it for us. But a good friend of mine, she runs azfirearms.com. She also runs Gun Freedom Radio. She is absolutely awesome. My dear friend, Danny's wife, Cheryl Todd.
That's awesome. Well, hello, hello, hello. And he didn't say it right. It is Gun Freedom Radio. All right. Always got to get that out of my system. Well, I am so honored to be here today. And when I look out across this crowd, you know what I see? I see leadership, right? So that's what I want to talk to you about today, is the idea of leadership. I am indeed a Second Amendment advocate, but I have spent my life studying business and psychology. And one of my mentors in those fields is Dr. Henry Cloud, and he summed up leadership in one simple phrase that has been a guiding force in my decision-making in how my husband and I run our businesses, my actions in both hiring and firing, and in how I interact with my elected officials. This phrase is both brilliant and simple, and it is, you get what you create or what you allow. If you are unhappy with your current situation, this phrase tells you exactly where to look for solutions, and that is at the person we see every time we pass a mirror. That is you, and that is me. Right? Too often we point our fingers at the people who work in the building behind me and at the media and at the whole litany of thems and theys, right? Who are eroding our rights and infringing on our liberties. And there is definitely effort being put in by those who hate freedom and who love to live with the boot of tyranny on their own necks and ours. Hell no. But my fellow Americans, everything always comes down to personal responsibility, right? And that is you. Our founding fathers and mothers certainly embodied these principles of creating and allowing. They fought, bled, starved, and died as they created this nation, which allowed their children and ours to thrive, wrapped in the precious and unique American constitutional protections. They created the impossible. They were outgunned, outmanned, outfinanced, and were a band of people just like me and my husband, shopkeepers, moms, dads, ordinary warriors. And like you, people who finally said, enough. We will no longer allow unjust laws to slowly smother us. They said, enough. You will not take away our tools of self-defense that protect us from predators, four-legged and two, right? They looked little King George Beto O'Rourke III, or whatever his name was, looked him right in his wild, manic, power-hungry eyes and said, enough, we will not comply. Our founders, the famous and those forgotten by history, handed over the keys to this shiny new nation, wrote us an owner's manual, and prayed that we would value their hard work and sacrifice and try not to wreck this beautiful new experiment in freedom and liberty. They created, and then we slowly and incrementally allowed those who hate liberty to chip the paint, bald the tire, and stain the upholstery with a splash of tyranny here and a dribble of infringements there. And worse still, we have allowed them to careen impulsively down the highway of emotional decision-making, ignoring every one of the warning signs and threatening to crash this perfect union headlong into the craggy cliffs of red flag gun laws and universal background checks. Our founders had one rule: eternal vigilance. But we outsourced our responsibilities to people we call our representatives and then failed to hold them accountable to how we wanted to be represented. Well, no more. Let yesterday be the last day we allow these representatives to feign ignorance of the will of the people. Let tomorrow be the first day that we begin to teach our children and our children's children the lessons of world history. And let today be the day that patriots from sea to shining sea become involved in the political process, local, state, and federal, to make the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and the Second Amendment the focal point of our work. And when we do this, my brothers and sisters in freedom, united and together, we, the people, will create a future that honors the sacrifices made by so many, that will once again allow our common bond to be liberty. Thank you.
Our next speaker is changing the conversation around the country at the intersection of mental health issues and gun rights. And this is an incredibly important intersection. As we know, mental health issues are being weaponized against us all across the country. They've been used against us emotionally. Now they're being used against us politically and legislatively. And what it takes is an educated mental health community and educated gun owners who are willing to help end the stigma around seeking mental health, to reduce the number of deaths related to firearms, especially in the areas of suicide. Mike Sedini is the founder of Walk the Talk America.
I'm good. He just did it. So, no. Thank you for coming out and supporting this. This is amazing. It's great to see everybody here. I have a quick question for the crowd. I'm from Vegas, so this is something that means something to me. How many people know the total number of people we lost on October 1 in Mandalay Bay? Close. It's 59. And I wake up every day to a mass shooting that nobody talks about. Every day we lose 58 people to suicide by firearm. And the reason why you don't hear about it is because it doesn't push an agenda and it doesn't sell ad space. For those of you who are unfamiliar with Walk Talk America, we focus on an intersection I like to call a dark corner. It's the intersection of mental health and firearms. Most suicides, over half, are by firearms, while 2/3 of all firearm deaths are suicide. All right, sorry. For the people in the back. No, I'm not. So, as you know, half of all deaths, right, by firearm, or 2/3, are suicide. WTTA has a laser focus on that intersection with a goal of reducing the number of firearm fatalities by suicide. We do this by implementing programs that educate the mental health community about the challenges they face when talking to the firearms community, as well as educating the firearms community about the misconceptions of seeking help from mental health professionals. By simply dispelling rumors and spreading accurate information, we can reach those in need via the communities they trust. Our community is a place of trust, especially for first responders and combat vets. This isn't an issue of just smart policy. This is about creating a society where mental health and the gun community have come together to develop innovative programs based on fact and understanding, rather than fear and mistrust. one where mental illness and gun ownership are destigmatized. Thank you. I hope I made a comeback there. So we create alliances with both local and national mental health organizations like Mental Health America to prevent suicide. We conduct outreach. We reach out to gun shops. We share accurate information. We provide free and anonymous screenings for those who are going through crisis. We've also brought local and national suicide prevention organizations to national trade shows. This is great because not only do they get educated about firearms, but we also get educated about the mental health and treatment engagement process. We've had 14 manufacturers come forward and put our treatment engagement mental health flyer in their box. It's something that we should be proud of. This organization is ours. It's something that we created within to show the rest of the country we're doing more than you. We're doing more than anybody that gets on Twitter and talks about us, that doesn't understand us. For far too long, anti-gunners, they wanted us to fail. And they thought we didn't do enough. And the perception was the reality. So not only we're doing something, but it's ours, and that is the most important thing. And I want to leave you with one thing to remember. We don't need legislation to save lives. We can take matters into our own hands and be the change. So, thank you.
Shooting sports are an incredible part of how we do outreach, getting people into the shooting sports, getting people out to the ranges. And History Channel's Top Shot did a great deal of promotional work for the Second Amendment community. The Top Shot Season 4 champion has become an author and a great advocate for gun rights. He's here with us today, Chris Cheng.
Good afternoon, everybody. So I am History Channel's Top Shot Season 4 champion, and I'm here today to share my quintessential American story. And it's my story is it could have only happened here in America because of the Second Amendment. And my experience on Top Shot was one where else in the world can a random guy like me, who's a self-taught amateur, go and win $100,000 shooting guns and to buy more guns, which is exactly what happened. But right, where else in the world can an average citizen like me go onto this TV show and win a boatload of cash? I quit my job at Google to be a professional shooter for 3.5 years. I gave up working for one of the most successful companies in the world because I wanted to see what it was like to be one of us. To be proud American gun owners, and I am just incredibly thankful for our country and the opportunity that the Second Amendment has provided me and provides all of us. I want to touch upon another deeply personal part of my background, which is I'm a member of the LGBT community, and if you don't know what that is, I'm gay. So just going to put it out there. And what's been so electrifying for me to be a gay guy in the gun community is that nobody here cares that I'm gay. In the gay rights movement, we talk about equality all the time. And for me, what does equality mean? It means that I am treated exactly the same as everybody else, that I am not special, and that the firearms community has treated me like an equal, and that I'm not special because I'm gay. It is really irrelevant, and that has been such an amazing experience. And one thing that I want to share with everybody about the LGBT community is our involvement in pride parades and rallies like this. And it is us being present and being out as gay people, and here we are being out as gun owners. And the parallel for me is that nobody walking down the street looking at me will know that I'm either gay or a gun owner. And so that's why we are here today as proud gun owners, and be visible, and we have to be loud, and we have to be proud. The last thing I want to discuss is how our government is trying to suppress our voices. It is frightening. And it is none more frightening than my hometown of San Francisco, California. A few months ago, the San Francisco Board of Supervisors passed a resolution declaring the NRA a domestic terrorist organization. In an incredibly reckless and irresponsible decision by my local city government. And with that resolution, right, when you apply the label terrorist to any group, and I took that very personally, that my local government is trying to call me a terrorist. We've got a terrorist out in the crowd. But right, the government is trying to label us as terrorists. They're trying to silence us. They're trying to shut down debate, shut down discussion because they don't like guns, they don't like our freedom. And it is incredibly important and impactful that we are here today to tell the government that we are 2A. I want you to join me. We are 2A. We are 2A. We are 2A. We are 2A. Our voices will be heard, and they are being heard today. Thank you so much for your support in our country and our Second Amendment.
I had really wanted to try to get through this without having to tell everybody what to do, but in the interest of our posterity, in the interest of what we came together to do today, if I could get everybody on the sidelines over here and everybody on the sidelines over here to press in for some of the photo ops from up top here, we want to really represent how many Second Amendment-loving American gun owners are here. So we get everybody to press in for at least the next half hour for some photo ops, for some media that's up here, that'd be great. Our next speaker is truly one of the leaders in the fight at so many different levels. He's a leader legislatively, he's a leader politically, he's a leader at the grassroots level. He runs the Firearms Industry Consulting Group. He was at the head of a huge win for gun rights in Pennsylvania recently, Joshua Prince.
It is a distinct honor and privilege to be here before all of you patriots here today. Let's let the world hear us. Now, I only have a couple minutes. Rob asked me this morning even to cut it back a little bit more. But you know the old adage, once you give a lawyer a microphone, all bets are off. I know Rob's getting worried right now, but I'll keep my promise to Rob. It's truly a sad day when we have to gather here to demand that our politicians honor our inalienable right to keep and bear arms. Our rights have never in the history of the United States been under attack like they are today. And it isn't just the Second Amendment. It's all of our inalienable constitutional rights that are under attack. Now, some of you may have heard about Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh passed 3 different ordinances. They passed one prohibiting what they termed assault weapons. They passed one prohibiting what they called high-capacity magazines. And then they passed another one dealing with red flag orders, which are truly just gun confiscation orders. We weren't having any of that. We filed suit through Firearm Owners Against Crime, Firearms Policy Coalition. We were supported by Gun Owners of America. A number of organizations all came together, and we sued Pittsburgh. We said, we will not have this. And I'm glad to report that last week we got a decision from Judge James. But before I tell you what the decision held, I thought it was very interesting. During oral argument, Everytown Law actually was trying to defend the city of Pittsburgh. They sent 8 lawyers during oral argument to come up against little old me. 8 different lawyers, all trying to get heard by the court to fight me. And one of the main attorneys for Everytown Law said, well, Your Honor, we've never lost a red flag order rule. And I responded, you haven't litigated against me yet. Yeah, well, they lost. All 3 ordinances struck down. But it didn't end there. No. What did I find out this week? The Chief Executive Officer, Fitzgerald of Allegheny County, and the mayor, Mayor Peduto, have taken action to file an ethics complaint against Judge James for following the law. This is the mentality of the people that we're up against. But it's not just at the municipal level. Next week, I'll be in front of the Third Circuit Court of Appeals in relation to a young lady who a decade ago made a false statement on a tax return. As a result, the U.S. government contends that she is prohibited for the remainder of her life from ever being able to keep and bear arms. Now, I could be wrong. I know with the Common Core educational system that we have today, I may be wrong. But I seem to remember in history class that there was a major war fought over taxation where our founding fathers refused to pay the tax, took up arms against the king, and successfully defeated the king. These are the battles we're waging on the front lines, but not everything is litigation. Our industry has come together to support ideas and philosophies to help protect the Second Amendment. We have a new organization, Hold My Guns. I believe Sarah Albrecht and Genevieve Jones are here in the audience, an organization designed to place people who are in crisis with avenues to take their firearms out of their home voluntarily, place them with a federal firearms licensee so that if they have that time of crisis, those weapons can be out of the household. That's our industry taking its own necessary steps to protect ourselves. We had Walk Talk America here earlier as well. These are the exact types of steps we need to be taking. And I know I'm probably already over time, and Rob probably hates me, but I want to just real quickly leave you with one last thing. About a month and a half ago, I was asked to testify before the Pennsylvania Senate. And one of the issues was the epidemic of violence that we're seeing across the United States. It's nothing new, but they want to pin it on gun owners as being our fault. I went into it with one thought process. And I came out absolutely horrified at what I found. When I started researching when the epidemic of violence started and the issuance or proliferation of the issuance of SSRI drugs, it was astounding. these SSRI drugs that almost all kids are on anymore, the side effects are extreme aggression. When you start looking into the school shooters, you find out that they were all on different SSRI drugs or other psychotropic medications. We need to demand that our politicians look into these side effects, because many people are surprised to learn the drug manufacturers, they can pick and choose what studies they want to disclose. They could have 1 million bad studies and only disclose one to the FDA, the one that helps them get that drug approved. And I don't have time to go over all my research. I'm, like I said, already beyond my time, I'm sure. But what I want you to understand, you need to research this for yourself. You can contact me. I'll send you my testimony before the Pennsylvania Senate. But we need to demand that the pharmaceutical industry be held responsible for the side effects of these harmful drugs. And I'll leave you with this. Molon Labe!
All right, our next speaker is another one of the DC Project leaders. They are very well represented across our community, across our country. This one from the Carolinas, Amy Dillon, is a proud military veteran, Marine Corps service, and she's going to talk to us today. Come on up, Amy.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for being here. I'm Amy Dillon. I'm a first-generation Filipino-American. I'm a United States Marine Corps veteran, firearms instructor, writer, co-host on the Polite Society podcast, and Second Amendment advocate with the DC Project. This month happens to be a big month. Not only are we here at the Second Amendment rally, and this is an amazing turnout, by the way, amazing. But it's also the month for Veterans Day, and it's the Marine Corps birthday. Do we have any active duty or former military in the crowd? I just want to thank you for your service, but I also want to thank all of you for your service, because being here today and standing up for our rights is service to country. Being a Marine Corps veteran, I'm going to start this with a typical Marine greeting, Semper Fidelis. It's the Marine Corps motto, and it means always faithful. It signifies the dedication that individual Marines have to Corps and country and to their fellow Marines. It is a way of life. It's not negotiable, it is not relative, but absolute. Marines pride themselves on their mission and their accomplishment and their dedication to accomplish it. But what it can mean for all of us is being faithful to our country, our Constitution, and faithful to this service. So I'd like to share with you a piece of my family's history. And I just want to say that sharing this with you all means so much to me, especially with the passing of my father, Cesar Carpio, just this past year. My father grew up in the Philippines. It was during the 1940s that the Philippines entered into World War II, when the Japanese Imperial Army attacked them and tried to seize them. My grandfather, Federico Carpio, fought against this by fighting with the United States military. He left for World War II and never came back. He was reported missing in action in 1942. And amidst all of this, and amidst the bombing by the Japanese Imperial Army during World War II in the Philippines, my dad, who was only 7 years old at the time, fled with the rest of the family to the mountains to escape and hide for several months while a tyrannical government destroyed their home. Hearing the story while I was growing up enforced the love of freedom for this country that I have today. And it's because of this that I am a patriot. This is not just a story I read in a book or watched in a movie. This is my legacy. It's what I choose to defend. I was only one generation away from the effects of a tyrannical government destroying a country and my existence. And I don't want to ever worry about that happening here. It's why we live in the greatest country in the world, and it's why the Second Amendment is the most important right. So when we have an opportunity to talk about the Second Amendment and why it's important, I hope you will remember my story, all of our stories. And will you join us to defend our rights so that we, the people, we, a self-governed people, will continue to be a free nation? Because that is our legacy.
Awesome. Thank you, Amy Dillon, ladies and gentlemen. The biggest little drill sergeant you'll ever meet. Our next speaker, you know, as we said, we're not underwritten by any big organization, but we reached out, and my good friend Eric Pratt agreed to come out and talk with you from Gun Owners of America. Mr. Eric Pratt.
Thanks, Jeff. Patriots of America, how are we doing? I am so glad that you are here today. Thank you for being here. Gun owners, we are fighting for our rights here in Washington, D.C., and you guys know that we are in a battle all over the country that's raging, and you may be tempted to think at this point that, you know, the anti-gunners and the media, but I repeat myself, you may be tempted to think that the anti-gun left is an insurmountable wall. How can we possibly win against them? Well, I want you to listen to what the very liberal Daily Kos had to say, because they actually fear you more. I quote, "It's the gun owners of America that keeps the left awake at night, clutching their comforters in fear." You see, the left fears you. They fear the power of grassroots gun owners, because really that's what Gun Owners of America is. GOA is made up of over 2 million members and activists, liberty-loving patriots like yourselves. The left fears you, and they do so for good reason. Here's why. Grassroots activists have been able to accomplish quite a bit, even in the last couple years especially. For example, since the Parkland shooting last year, the number of school districts arming teachers has doubled in just 1 year. That is fantastic. Or how about this? Since last year, 231 counties in 15 states have told their governors and federal officials that they are not allowed to enforce gun control in their counties. Their message is, keep your hands off of our gun rights. And then there's the really good news. Constitutional carry. Just this year, 3 additional states became permitless carry states. No more asking for permission to carry a gun. In 2000, we only had 1 state. Today, we have 17 states, over 1/3 of the country, that is permitless carry. You all know this is really significant because you and I know our rights don't come from government. They don't come from popular opinion and the polls. They don't even come from a piece of paper like the Constitution, as good of a document as that is. None of those things are the basis of our rights. It's already been stated up here today. As our Declaration of Independence says, our rights come from God. They are endowed to us by our Creator, and that's why they can't be taken from us. That is why government cannot restrict them. That is why the Second Amendment says, help me now, shall not be infringed. It doesn't say that you can have a background check. It doesn't say you can impose red flag gun grabs or require permits and permission or pass universal background checks. No, shall not be infringed means just that. Keep your hands off our gun rights. We will not comply. Are you listening, Nancy Pelosi? Republicans, do you hear what gun owners are telling you? I know a lot of times, gun owners will ask us, does my action make any difference? Let me tell you, yes, it does. After the mass killings in August, gun grabbers, as you know, were pressing hard to get gun control passed, bring Congress back into session. They wanted to pass things like universal background checks, red flag gun grabs, semi-auto bans. So in response, GOA members generated more than 3 million messages into Republican offices on Capitol Hill and onto the White House. That's people like yourself taking action. And did it make a difference? Oh, yes, it did. One senior office here on Capitol Hill confided to us that gun control passing would have already been a done deal, except gun owners, you all, have been so loud and have put so much pressure on these legislators that gun control has stalled in the Congress. Your activism does make a difference. Your hard work is paying off. So don't let up. Keep sending those emails. Keep sending those letters. Keep making those phone calls, because you guys are truly making a difference. Thank you all for being here. Thank you so much for your support of the Second Amendment.
Thank you, sir. Eric Pratt from Gun Owners of America. Our next speaker started out as a grassroots activist. He was in Colorado and didn't like what some of his politicians were doing to Colorado gun owners, so he recalled them. And then he moved on to be on the board of directors of the NRA, but that didn't work out after a while. And now he's got a new podcast, To the Republic, I believe it's called. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Tim Knight.
It's awesome to see you guys all here today. And, you know, to get up on the podium, I'm not a public speaker, but we're all going to have to step out of our comfort zones and make a difference. That's what's going to have to happen. Slightly more than a half a mile from here are the National Archives, the current home of our Constitution. On that building is etched an inscription: "Eternal vigilance is the price of liberty." Clearly, there's truth in that. But what's going to be required as well is engagement. We have to get engaged. It's not enough to be a spectator, to watch and commentate from the sidelines. It's not enough to send membership dues to an advocacy group and expect action from others. There you go. The rights enshrined in the Constitution will only continue to belong to us if we as individuals are willing to put in the hard work of preserving them. We must do more than speak strong words. We have to be active advocates among our countrymen, every single one of us here. We need to listen to the concerns and warnings delivered here today and deliver them to a far wider public. That's all of us. We need to learn more about our history and engage in conversations about it. We need to invite people to our ranges, into our sports, and to our hunting traditions. We need to advocate more strongly for women's rights of self-defense. We need to illustrate that our rights belong to every citizen, no matter how they differ from each other. We need to address mental health concerns with real solutions that do not compromise our civil rights. Here's one we all need to get better at. We need to knock on doors. It's the most awkward part of politics, and nobody wants their door even knocked on. But we have to get out there and support candidates who've earned your respect. There are groups that will do this, but you guys are needed. It's got to happen. It won't be easy. It will put some of us in unfamiliar and uncomfortable situations, but it's time. Our very freedoms are contingent upon many, many more of us standing up now and being the difference we need. We have to make it personal and genuine. That's what you guys have got here. We have to acknowledge our differences and then we have to put them aside. There you go. We have to grab what unites us, because if we do not, rest assured, those who think themselves our betters will continue to exploit those differences and hasten our decline from citizens into subjects. My name is Timothy Rothwell Knight. The Rothwells, my ancestors, were stonemasons who built part of this very building behind us. They did it for more than a paycheck. They did it because they believed in the continuing experiment of our constitutional republic. I'm going to honor their work by continuing to build a strong country, one where I can stand with my friends, with you, and join us, and please, let's make a difference together. This country, one that I can leave to my children when my time has come, knowing they understand the importance of liberty and the price that comes with it. Thank you all. Let's knock on some doors and make a difference.
Tim Knight. Back in 2008, I was here across the street in the next building over the United States Supreme Court, and there was an important decision that had been reached that day. And that decision was the Heller decision. Well, after that one came Heller 2, and then came Heller 3. Heller 4 is on the way. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Guns, Dick Heller.
Oh, thank you. Dick Heller, and I'm proud to say I'm a life member of Gun Owners of America. And louder? Can you hear me in the back? Okay. This isn't about me. This is your day. This is your day to yell to the world that in a free country, we have a Fourth and a Fifth Amendment and a First Amendment. And if those don't work, we gun owners have a Second Amendment right to protect them. I think we need to stay energized with the right of the people. So yell with me so that the whole world and the media hears you. You ready? The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Awesome. Freedom. Wild. Okay. All of human nature is wrapped up into all these governments around here. We know that government, it's been written about for thousands of years. Government is force and coercion, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So my favorite is a fellow by the name of Frederick Bastiat. About 1850, just a few years before our Civil War, he wrote a little book called simply The Law. And that book is so powerful it's still taught in good law schools today. And the whole little book can be condensed down to one sentence. And his message is this: all governments will initiate violence against citizens who have done nothing violent. Okay? So, nonviolent things, simple things like, did you ever forget to pay a traffic ticket? Did you ever forget to show up in court? Or just ask Shaneen Allen. She was merely driving from her home in Pennsylvania to her job in Pennsylvania, and she had to travel through a little sliver of New Jersey where she was pulled over by a state trooper. There's more. She was pulled over by a state trooper for failure to turn signal because she just wanted to let the trooper just rush right on by. Well, Shaneen spent 49 days in jail. A mother of two, 49 days in jail away from her babies. And why did this happen? This happened because the New Jersey legislature are made up of people who made a conscious decision to ignore the Second Amendment. Or just ask a fellow by the name of Mark Meckler, who was co-founder of the Tea Party. He properly placed his firearms lockbox on the airport counter, check-in counter at LaGuardia Airport in New Jersey, and where they are trained to yell, "Oh, he's got a gun!" At which point, Mark is pounced upon, dragged off to jail, and it cost him a lot of time and about $6,000, kind of a standard fee, and that little cottage industry there of imitation justice. And they were halfway decent about it. They sealed his records so that Mark Meckler did not lose his Second Amendment rights, but the corrupt system, they kept his guns, okay? Or just ask, what's his name? Gary Willis, a 61-year-old innocent person. Ask Gary Willis if we could. An irate relative made, using the new Maryland red flag laws, made a prank call so that, full disclosure, I'm still a cop, active duty, and the cops violated Gary's privacy of his home at, get this, 5:17 a.m. Okay? So, to pick a line from The Lone Survivor, you are never out of the fight. Why? Because all governments will initiate violence against its citizens who have done nothing wrong. Do we have time to re-energize again with the right of the people? Yell it so the world hears you. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Thank you. Freedom.
Thank you, sir. The next speaker we're going to have up here is one of the most dynamic speakers that's entered the forefront of the gun rights advocacy world over the last few years. He does work where no one else has been doing work in the past, and that's been a failure of the gun community. He's corrected that, and he's leading the gun community in ways that are really unique. He's also running for office. His election in Philadelphia is coming up on Tuesday, and yet he's taking time to be here with us today. Maj Touré.
What's up? We're going to get straight to it. I'm going to make it awkward for a couple of minutes, and I'm going to make it very honest for a couple of minutes. So this place that we're at right now has been famous for a very, very famous speech. Anybody know who that's by? Dr. Martin Luther King. And I'm a fan of the OG. I love him, his commitment to the community. And one, he had an arsenal that nobody wants to talk about. Right? But his death is proof of commitment to the cause, more so than everybody standing right here right now. Okay? But I'm also a fan of somebody else that never got the chance to speak at this great nation's capital. Malcolm X. Malcolm X had an amazing speech called The Ballad of the Bullet. I'm going to give you all a couple of excerpts, and I'm going to say how that 50, 60 year ago speech still rings true today, okay? A ballot is like a bullet. You don't throw your ballots until you see a target. And if that target is not within your reach, you keep your ballot in your pocket. Now, we are here right now today to exercise our voice, our choice, our ability to say we have a framework called the Constitution. We have human rights codified in the Bill of Rights under natural law that is not given to us by government. that is codified languaging that all ethnicities, backgrounds, people from all across this great nation have the ability to exercise regardless of what the anti-freedom agenda will tell you. Malcolm X knew that. Malcolm X was murdered. Similar to Dr. King, was murdered. Freedom fighters. We are here exercising the thing that I hope and pray our elected public servants understand and make course corrections. The second portion of this is this. We've been throwing our ballots away. Ballots of thought, ballots of education, ballots of civics. We, you, are at fault. We have been complicit in tossing our voices away under the guise of disagreement. You got this organization beefing with that organization. I don't like those guys and those women because over there, oh, here, little lady, you need a revolver. All of this silly shit. Our opposition exploits that. The extent that we continue to do these irresponsible moves is the extent that we make room for the second option. Bullets. Don't. Let me tell y'all something real quick. The founding fathers to this nation understood that they was potentially going to be hung for high treason. War is bloody. War is a potential solution, but you, your countrymen and women, some of your loved ones will die if we are not utilizing our ballots and our voices and our choices to galvanize our people, Americans, to self-correct. So when you scream and clap at war, understand that revolutions are bloody. If you are not ready to die about this, shut up. In this crowd, there's shooters, freedom fighters, patriots, women and men who are willing to kill and die for liberty. This is the horrible outcome of what happens when we fail to course correct, when we fail to exercise our voices and ballots. Now, let me say this. I did the whole written down stuff. I never did that before. We are in a space where we got this fork in the road. That freedom that has to be defended is going to come from you. The failure of us to galvanize effectively, put people in local, state, and federal office that are in alignment with these values and the framework that we already have will create revolution. It is not cute. It is not a cliche. It is not some slick shit you say in Roman or Greek or any of those slick catchphrases. These are perspectives that our founding fathers and mothers knew that we were responsible for. We will not comply. We will not lay down. But we also will not rush our hand unaware of the bloody potential outcome. I want to say thank you to all of you that have come here today. We are here unarmed in respect of unconstitutional laws, putting our differences aside to speak to a bigger agenda. The agenda is our freedom, our liberty, our Constitution, and our human right to exist. My name is Maj Toure. Thank you, patriots. Thank you. We will not comply.
You just gotta love Maj, don't you? Oh my goodness. Y'all, this thing was a short notice, quick, bring it together, bring people together. Can't be done, it's impossible. Look around you, it's possible. While you're looking around, say hello to the people next to you if you don't know them. Shake their hand, ask them where they're from. Get to know one another. This is church, folks. As we put this together, it was a small team. There wasn't a lot of us, and it was a lot of hard work. And I'll tell you one thing, there's a big statue down there. On that horse is General Grant. And people came and complained to Lincoln about General Grant. And Lincoln's response was, I can't spare this man. He fights. Well, ladies and gentlemen, when it came to putting this rally together, I was kind of the chaplain to the drill sergeant, so I got the earful. There were some complaints. But I'll tell you what, I cannot spare this man. He gets shit done. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Rob Pincus.
The driving force behind this rally was coalition. Coalition under some simple ideas. Maybe you agree with this idea. I very rarely write things down, but I wrote some of this down. No more restrictions. Very simple. Say it with me. No more restrictions. No more restrictions. Not one more restriction on types of firearms, variants of firearms, individual firearms. Not one more restriction on a class of ammunition, caliber, or type of bullet. No restrictions on a single accessory, tool, or book related to firearms. No more limits on my collection, nor any restrictions on the frequency with which I can add to my collection. We will no longer tolerate the slow encroachment upon our right to keep and bear arms. I talked about coalition. For years, the piecemeal banning of items and restricting of our rights has served to divide law-abiding American gun owners. We've been divided into various factions. These factions have struggled over limited resources, and many of us have only acted when our own individual priorities were going to be affected. That time has ended. Let this Second Amendment rally, the coalition of people with different perspectives under the Second Amendment, be the end of that. We'll still have our disagreements in the details, but this rally has been purchased by the time and effort by individual gun owners of America, hunters, sport shooters, firearms collectors, police officers, self-defense advocates. And if your intention, whoever you are that's listening, is to take away our guns, come and take them all at once. United we stand. Yes, sir. The time for division has ended. If it's your goal, whoever you are, to take our guns away, face us as a group in the legislative halls and courtrooms of this country. Be open and honest about your intention to deprive American citizens of a constitutional right, an American tradition, a recreational activity, and our private property, and the means to protect ourselves and those that we care about. No more restrictions. No more restrictions. No more restrictions. At this point, I'm going to ask you to show a little grace, to show a little bit of room to hear somebody speak, somebody who's become a friend of mine. People ask me, when did I start in the firearms industry? How long have I been doing this? Well, I wrote that speech in 1999. Google it. Firearms Owners Unification Project. That's when that was written, the majority of that, 20 years ago. And there's a lot of people who believe this. And at the federal level, we have had very, very little infringement, very, very little restrictions. But it's that piecemeal part. It's the division of resources inside our community that's been a problem. I say I started in 1997. That was my first SHOT Show. Within 30 days of my first SHOT Show in 1997, my friend, who I'm going to bring up here on the stage in a minute, was also brought into the gun rights issue. A family member of his was shot in a spree killing in New York City on the observation deck of the Empire State Building. This was at the height of the assault weapons ban, right in the middle of the assault weapons ban, and tragedy struck his family. And that inspired him to take action. Those actions are not actions that we would agree with. He's going to talk to you a little bit about how his perspectives may have changed and how his sincerity in doing what we all want to do, protect people's right to keep and bear arms while also protecting lives, which is the vast majority of us own guns for that reason. And he is the most recent past president of the Brady campaign. Past president for a reason, because of some disagreements. Ladies and gentlemen, Dan Gross.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for that warm welcome. It really means a lot because this is one of the hardest things that I've ever done. But I think it's very, very important. Just in case you were wondering if you heard Rob Pincus right, my name is Dan Gross, and for 6 years I was president of the Brady campaign to prevent gun violence. And no, I didn't make a wrong turn at the Nats parade and wind up here by accident. And yes, it is one of the hardest things I've ever done, but I am here proudly, and I am here entirely by free will. I'm here because I believe fundamentally in the Second Amendment right to bear arms. And I'm here, as Rob said, because I know that at the end of the day, all of you and I share a common goal. We want to keep our homes, our schools, our families, our loved ones safe. But I'm also here for another reason. I'm here because I've seen how all of you, decent, responsible, law-abiding gun owners, are relentlessly and I believe unfairly demonized. I'm here because I've seen firsthand how an ideological hatred of guns and the people who own them is more important to some people than the actual goal of saving lives. And I'm here because I've seen firsthand how tragic those misplaced priorities are. As someone who, as Rob said, has experienced a gun-related tragedy in my own family, and as someone who has spent my life dedicated, whether you agree with the things I've said or not, my life dedicated to the pure goal of preventing what happened to me from happening to other people, there is nothing that pisses me off more than people who pretend they care about saving lives but really have other agendas. And at the end of the day, the reason why I'm swallowing hard and doing this here today is regardless of which side of the political issue you're on, if you're willing to have an honest conversation about what we can do to prevent the loss of innocent lives in a way that upholds the Second Amendment and respects people who own guns, you and I are going to get along. And if you're not willing to do all those things, you and I are going to have issues. And I can tell you, when I was leading Brady, I had a lot of issues with a lot of people who thought they were on my side. The reality is, when it comes to guns, in many ways, I believe I have much more in common with all of you, a crowd of proud, law-abiding, and responsible gun owners, than I do with a crowd of people who just want to ban guns. Now, I want to keep it real. I'm going to be honest. There are probably still some areas where you and I may disagree. Probably fewer than you'd think, but still, I'm pretty sure, based on the things that I've heard here today, that we don't agree on everything. That's okay. Thank you. But make no mistake, that stuff, those few areas where we may disagree, that is not why I'm here. Just the opposite. I'm here because of how incredibly much we fundamentally do agree. The fact is, I didn't come here to build common ground. I came here because I know that there's common ground that already exists, and because I believe that that common ground represents a huge opportunity to do what we all want at the end of the day, which is to keep us all safe. And just as importantly, the common ground I want to talk about here today represents an opportunity to keep us all safe without, now wait for it, without any involvement of the government. Because I've always believed, if you want to talk about preventing tragedies with guns that are legally owned, that should be a conversation you have with the people who own those guns. And that's the conversation that I've come to be a part of here today, to talk about what gun owners can do to reclaim the narrative in this country, as we've heard other speakers talk about, to prove what I already know, that the overwhelming majority of gun owners, the overwhelming majority of you, like the overwhelming majority of human beings, are decent, responsible, law-abiding people who, same as anyone, feel awful when a tragedy happens. And people who just want their families and their loved ones and their communities to be safe. To help demonstrate that the gun owners of our nation recognize that with the fundamental right to own a gun comes a fundamental responsibility to do it safely. And to help prove, as all of you are proving here today, that you're not just willing to talk the talk, but that you're willing to walk the walk. I am so inspired by so many of the people I've met here today, by so many of the things I've heard here today, like about the organization Walk the Walk, like the effort that Josh was talking about earlier around Hold My Guns. That is a real commitment to walking the walk. And as part of my commitment to walking that walk, I regard my being here today as just the beginning. I hope we're going to be seeing a lot more of each other. And in fact, I'm with members of the gun community, including a lot of people that are here today, on a new project called the Center for Gun Rights and Responsibility that you'll be hearing more about in the coming weeks and months. Because in the end, here's what I know. I know that if we can have an honest conversation about guns in this conversation, a conversation where people who own guns and people who don't can come together and acknowledge and accept both the rights and responsibilities that come with gun ownership, we have a massive opportunity to both protect the rights of gun owners and to do what you and I and every decent American wants, and that's to keep ourselves, our loved ones, our communities, and our nation safe. Thank you.
Gun News. You know him from Cam & Company, now from Bearing Arms, Cam Edwards.
Thank you all. It is great to see you out here. I really appreciate it. You know, as I was walking in from Union Station, I was seeing a lot of the Nats fans, and they were holding signs that said, "Fight finished." And I thought to myself, damn, that must be nice. Because our fight is not finished. I don't know what your plans are for Sunday. I'll be going home tonight. I live in Virginia. Tomorrow I will be campaigning and volunteering to help ensure that we don't lose our Second Amendment majority in the state legislature, or else next week New Jersey and Virginia are going to have a lot more in common than being located on the East Coast. The fights that we face right now are so real. But the broad support that our right to keep and bear arms enjoys is real as well. Just look around you. When you talk to the people who are next to you, how many of them are from a different state? I've talked with folks from Hawaii, New Hampshire, and New Hampshire represent, live free or die state, California, Washington state. It is amazing to see people from all around the country here, and you all are the leaders in your communities. You are the voices that have to go back and have to help spread the word about what's going on right now, because the fights that we're facing, look, Beto O'Rourke's gone. He's dropped out of the campaign. That's great. Bye-bye, Beto. Here's the thing. Is there any candidate right now running as a Democrat for president in 2020 that you look at their gun platform and you say, yeah, that's good. I like that? No. They're all just as bad as Beto. And unfortunately, we know that this is a nonpartisan issue. There are Republicans that are just as bad as Beto as well. There are Democrats that agree with me, a conservative, on the Second Amendment. And I love it when I see that, because the right to keep and bear arms is not a right of middle-aged white guys with potbellies and beards. It is a right of all Americans. There's a saying that I like to use when I talk about and report on armed citizen stories, and I'd love to hear what it sounds like when thousands of people chant it. So if you would help me out here, I'm going to say self-defense. Would you say it's a human right? Self-defense. God, that sounds good. Self-defense. Self-defense. It is a human right. It is a right of the right. It is a right of the left. It is a right of the muddled middle. It is a right of the white. It is a right of the minorities. It is a right of all human beings to protect and defend themselves. And the people who put this framework of government together more than 200 years ago, they knew that the right to keep and bear arms was the most fundamental, important way to protect that right of self-defense. We have too many people right now who, as Dan said, want to take guns away under the guise of public safety. We have other Americans who do mean well. They really don't want to take everybody's guns away. But the result would be a massive disarmament of legal, law-abiding American gun owners. Those are the folks that we have to try to reach out to. And sometimes the arguments that we like to make shall not be infringed. It doesn't matter to them. Some of those folks might not see the Constitution as anything other than an old piece of paper that's tucked away in a building down the block. So how do we reach those folks? I think we can reach them on their level. Talked about the Democrats running for president. Every single one of them is running as a criminal justice reform champion. That's great. That's fantastic. But you can't call yourself a criminal justice reform champion if you want to imprison millions of people who are currently exercising a constitutional right. We need to ensure that the media calls these candidates out. We need to ensure that tough questions get asked. And we're going to have to work hard because the media wants to cover for a lot of these candidates. But here's the thing. Despite the fight that we're in, despite the billions of dollars available to gun control groups, we are still achieving victories around the country. Yesterday, November the 1st, state I lived in for 25 years, Oklahoma became the 16th constitutional carry state in the United States of America. There are now twice as many states that say, you're a legal gun owner? You don't need a permission slip from the government to bear arms. You don't have a permission slip from the government to keep arms. Twice as many states that recognize your right to carry without a permit as restrictive issue states like New Jersey or Maryland, California, New York. The right to carry revolution is continuing, and we are winning. Do you realize not one state in the union has ever repealed a shall issue right to carry law? Not one state has ever gone back and said, boy, constitutional carry was a mistake.
What state's the closest state with right to carry?
Closest state with right to carry? With constitutional carry? Now you're going to put my geography to work here. Let's see, that'd be New Hampshire, Vermont, West Virginia. Thank you very much. See, I can't even keep track of it. That's how much winning we're doing at the state level. But again, this doesn't happen magically. It's not like the Second Amendment fairy suddenly appears at state capitals and, bounces her wand off of lawmakers' heads and all of a sudden we got constitutional carry. It's because of people like us doing that hard work, talking to lawmakers, the boring stuff, not even the hard work, just the boring stuff, taking time off of work to go to the Capitol, going to city council meetings, going to county commissioner meetings. The other side is doing that work, I can tell you, each and every day. We need to be doing that work as well. And when we do, again, we win. So we can disagree, as Rob said, on some of the specific issues. I've had conversations about red flag laws. I don't like them. But I've had conversations with people who I know are Second Amendment supporters who say, well, let's talk about this. I may agree with them 90% of the time. And you know what? I'll work with them 90% of the time to advance our common goals and our common interests. We cannot be divided. If we do not, where's that join or die sign I saw flying earlier? If we do not join together despite some of our minor differences, our rights will die. And I don't know about you, but I don't want it to happen on our watch. So thank you for being here. Thank you for standing up for the right to keep and bear arms. Go back home, take what you feel right now with you, energize your communities, And let's be back bigger than ever before long. Thank you all so much.
Cam Edwards, ladies and gentlemen. All right. Our next speaker comes from the Firearms Policy Coalition, from their legal project. They are out there defending your rights in the courts. Mr. Matt LaRosiere.
Do y'all know where you're at?
Eat the microphone, Matt.
Okay, I'll eat the microphone. Y'all have come out to a city, a district that says, by default, you cannot have a weapon. And they have threatened to lock you in a cage if you do have a weapon. And still, thousands of you have come here. That's brave. Whatever happens, I thank God that it is you guys that are on my side. So I've heard a lot of people up here talk about the Second Amendment, and you know, it's one of the biggest mistakes of my life, but I am a lawyer. We spend a lot of time fighting over language, over words and documents. And there's one word that I fight about a lot, and I'm really confused, and I'm wondering if you guys can help me. The Second Amendment, it says something about the right of the people. Who is that? Oh! Can you tell them? Because when I tell them that, they tell me I'm wrong. They seem to indicate that it's for rich people, people who can afford to pay lawyers to get their property for them, who can afford to apply for permits or this and that. Is that what the people means? No! Oh, okay. So what you're telling me, when the founders put the Second Amendment into our Bill of Rights, it was actually not a grant of privilege, but a recognition that no moral society can envision an outcome where somebody uses unlawful force against you and you have to accept your death. Is that what they meant? No! Oh, did they mean that there is no situation where somebody can commit a crime against you and you have no recourse? That, ladies and gentlemen, is what was in their mind. There cannot be a situation where we just accept being turned to vapor at someone else's whim, no matter if it is a criminal, a burglar, and in fact, any enemy, foreign or domestic, Democrat or Republican. I need a favor from you guys, though. Think about it. If we have a society that envisions this right, as something that is dear to you, is that the same type of society that issues permits? No! Oh, okay. I mean, I'm in agreement, but when that happens, what they are saying is that this isn't your right. This is something you have to work to get our approval. That's the opposite of the situation. And so that's why we at Firearms Policy Coalition say that the time of not another inch passed decades ago. You have taken too much, and it is time for us to take it back. The days of our representatives saying they asked for the hand and I gave them a finger being accepted as a victory are over. So help me join the fight. Come here with us on the days they're actually in office and tell them, you have messed with my rights for too long. You have taken too many fingers. Give them back. And let me tell you something else. Everything is all about DC. You know, y'all want to be here. I'm glad you're here. But this isn't where the big battles are being fought and won right now. Huge battles are being fought, won, and lost on the state and local levels. We desperately need you, our brothers and sisters, to be out there and active and animated in that fight. And if you don't know what to do, go to firearmspolicy.org, click Take Action, and we have all the tools there for you to get you into the trenches with us, because that is where we desperately want you. And I think that you will love, just as you've come here and met your brothers and sisters, you will find yourself well acquainted there. And that is not where it's most important. What's most important is even more local than that. For years, the gun rhetoric has been taken over. It just hasn't been working, okay? We need to earn hearts and minds. You need to talk to people who are close to you, your boyfriends, your girlfriends, your husbands, your wives, your friends, your dog walkers, your uncles. And you need to communicate. Look, the gun controllers, they've gotten pretty good at this. They've come up with pretty emotional, powerful arguments. Ours are better. Our emotional arguments are better, and they are backed up in fact, in reality. And so I need you to talk to your friends, make friends with people who disagree with you, and speak to them with a smile on your face, and just try to understand each other. That is how we will win. We will win hearts, we will win minds, and we will take back what's ours, and we will, like we said before, not tolerate living in an immoral society. An immoral society tells you that you must accept death. No. Thank you all so much. I am so proud to be here with all of you. God bless you.
Matt LaRosiere. I'm going to do a little bit of housekeeping real quick. I'm going to ask you folks back here, all of you behind me, swing back around, push back out into the front. When people look at this crowd, I want them to see all of you right down here where you can hear us. It actually helps to be down front. Y'all over here too. Bring it in. Love on each other. Let's get together. Now, a few years ago, the YouTubes suddenly became something on the webs, the interwebs. And one of the pioneers, one of the guys who just boomed out of nowhere with a program called The Gun Collective. I think maybe a few of you have heard of it. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. John Patton.
Hi. Look, I'm going to read from my phone, get over it. Hey, everyone. I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for making your way here. Not every gun owner in America could be here, and you did. So thank you. Seriously. Give yourselves a round of applause. You know, it's not every day that I get to stand here in this spot talking to this many people. So I want to make it count. This goes to every politician within earshot in D.C. I want you to listen very closely. We are not criminals, and we will not be treated that way. We will not be treated like a criminal for exercising our human rights, our civil rights. We will not stand for it. It is time right now for Washington to hear our voice. I also want to make sure that every single one of you standing here with us today understands that this right will not be maintained without a fight. The fight for gun rights is difficult. It seems that every time we turn around, some new half-baked legislation is brought forth to further strip you of your rights. And we cannot and will not stand for it. My opportunity to stand here today doesn't make me special or more important or anything like that. I'm just a guy that makes videos about guns and I put them on the internet. I hope that you all remember that today isn't about any one person that's standing up here or a group of people that come to the microphone, but it is about every single one of you and everyone that's not here. The right to bear arms belongs to every American. It's a human right. I want all of you humans standing here before me to remember that it is up to us to fight. I tell folks all the time, get involved. Create a movement in your state, wherever you live. Support existing ones. Even when the fight seems like it might be lost, we must fight. The question comes up the most often, what do we do? John, what do we do? It's almost too simple. Go get involved, right? That's too simple. Call your representatives. Write a letter to your senator. Plan a rally at your local municipal building. Heck, you could even create a gun rights group in your hometown. Any one of you could do this. Literally, bring gun owners together and talk about what you enjoy shooting. It is that simple. Advancing our cause isn't always about beating down the doors of politicians and giving them an earful. It's about our community growing and being strong and welcoming. Take someone new to the range, teach them how to shoot. Take a kid to the range, teach them how to shoot. Take your grandma to the range and let her teach you how to shoot. This community does not exist without the core appreciation for firearms and the incredible amounts of joy that it can bring to your life. Heck, you could even start a YouTube channel about guns or gun rights. Some people tell me that's a way to make an impact. I'm not sure. I'm not kidding. Consider the huge positive impact of guys like Hickok and Iraq Vet 8888 and Mac. These guys are all here today. The impact they've made is immense. Absolutely immense. Normalizing guns to new folks is never a bad thing. It's not. And I tell you this with 100% certainty, and I mean this, you standing here before me, you listening on the internet later, you can do any of these things to stand up for the Second Amendment. It's also important to remember that gun owners come in all shapes and sizes. Look around today. Literally, take a second, look around you. Among us, we have all kinds of races, genders, orientations, backgrounds, and people from more than one political party, believe it or not. Despite all of these differences, despite disagreements that may exist, we have come together to stand for our human right, our civil right to bear arms. The right to bear arms, the right to possess and use a gun, the right to defend ourselves against tyranny is all covered under the Second Amendment. And today, we make that loud and clear, that the Second Amendment belongs to all of us, and we will not let it be taken from us. We will fight. One more time. We will not comply. We will not comply. My name is John Patton. Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, as we continue on, I've got a young man that is doing excellent work, reaching out to people who don't get reached out to enough, and not the bearded guys, the other guys. KD, Mr. Kevin Dixon.
All right, no problem. All right, what's up, y'all? Everybody good? All right, cool. So I'm gonna start this off. Now, look, I'm gonna say some things that make y'all uncomfortable. We are a real conversation today? All right, cool. So right now, I'm gonna tell you I'm the most victimized man in Washington, D.C. First of all, I'm from St. Louis. All right? That means I'm a Cardinals fan. All right? So we just got swept by these same people. I need to stand up here and give a speech to y'all while I'm looking at these Nationals celebrate their World Series. I'm a little salty today. All right? Shut your mouth. All right. That being said, guys, yeah, my name is Kevin Dix. Everybody calls me KD. So it's what I'm here to do is help inspire you guys, all right? Now, when I said I'm gonna tell you some things that are uncomfortable, and I just need you to listen to me, right? If we had some cigars and some bourbon right now, we could talk about a lot of stuff, right? Right? At the end of the night, still be brothers, everybody go home. Well, some of y'all go home, some of y'all fall asleep in alleys, or whatever you do, all right? But we still get along. So here's something I've noticed, all right? I've been dealing in firearms for a while now, but when I started off with guns, that was in my neighborhood. I'm from inner city St. Louis, right? And so guns were used in a totally different aspect. Two people had guns, cops and criminals, and that was about it, right? Nobody in between. But what I noticed is that from the same political promises I got from, you know, alder people, mayors, whatever have you, it was, hey, we're gonna make the community better, we're gonna increase this, we're gonna increase that. But while they had me as a young man, 16, 17 years old, they also took the time to tell me something about all you guys. You know what they told me? You're a bunch of racist, gun owner, redneck, trailer park living, can't wait to hang me by my neck type people. Now, I'm a teenager, so I'm like, oh, this seems kind of strange because I still have my neck. But okay, whatever. All right, so what I noticed, though, is that they are very, very good at causing a divide. Very good at it. You know where we suck at? And when I say we, I mean everybody here. We suck at listening. All right? So I want you to do me a favor, and I want you guys to all be honest because it's about learning today, all right? So we're going to talk about what used to divide us, how it unites us, all right? Where's my timekeeper at? Right here. All right. So I want you guys to be very, very honest. Now, when I say this next date, and be honest, don't lie because we can't get to the truth if you guys are deceitful. When I say this date, I want you with everything in you to give me everything you got. 1776! Give it to me! Woo! One more time. 1776! My God, my God, my God. Who has some family members fighting back then? Who can trace their lineage? Look at these hands go up. All right? Who respects that history? Who respects what their people did for them? Love it. And that's the honesty I wanted. Now I want you to continue it. You with me? 1921. That's what I'm talking about. You see that? 1921. So let's be honest about something. Now, before I get started, guys, a lot of people like to use what I say and say that I'm a victim, and this is my statement to that. Try to make me a victim and see how I respond. Don't get my words twisted and don't get my actions twisted. You can get that work, all right? Now, that being said, understand this. In 1776, that is a date we should respect. I'm just as excited as you, right? Matter of fact, one could argue we should be doing more to respect it, right? We wouldn't be standing here if it wasn't for that date. Those great men that died, those people that fought, we wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be here. You wouldn't be here, right? Cool. In 1776, understand something, and this is where they're good at being divisive and we are not good at listening. In 1776, it is factual. People that looked like me were property. I was no different than those chairs, cell phones, cameras. Take it how you want. It's the flat out truth. It's not about being emotional. It's just the truth. It's the way things were. All right? But one of the reasons this country stood up in 1776 is important because we were tired of being the victims of tyranny, correct? Frustrated with it, being taxed to death, telling what we can and can't own, where we can and can't live, right? Frustrating. So people fought back and they were free. Well, 1921, guys, Tulsa, Oklahoma, Black Wall Street, okay? Black Wall Street was a peaceful community, and make the story short, because of a lie, and a flat-out lie that is noted in history, that town, successful town, nicknamed Black Wall Street because of its success. It was an all-black community, lawyers, doctors, school, everything. When somebody tells you that you can't fight, you go out, you build your own community, right? However, because of a lie, the white community around Tulsa and surrounding communities merged on Black Wall Street and killed 500 people in less than 24 hours. Not only did they kill them, the state police dropped kerosene bombs from the sky, okay? They murdered them. Even our military vets that were men of color stood proud in their front yards to say there is no way this mob will attack me and my family because I served my country. Wrong. Raped their family, murdered them, and burned their homes. So what I like to say is in 1776, America fought for its freedom from Britain. In 1921, I was still fighting for my freedom from America, okay? And that is the truth. But now, how do we use what used to divide us to unite us? You didn't bomb Tulsa. I never wore a chain around my neck. You never whipped me. You pull out something and hit me, I'm gonna have a flashback. It's gonna hurt. It's gonna be bad, right? So it's not about blaming you or blaming me. It's not about that. But when it comes to the cultural fight and being honest with each other, what we need to recognize is this. Despite where we come from, that does not change where we can go, all right? So, no, hell with that. Y'all give me some more claps. What's wrong with y'all? All right? So what I like to say is this, guys. What I do is expose the truth. Now, how many people in this crowd know that part of the political selling is that men that look like me should not own guns? All right, is that the truth? Men that look like me shouldn't own guns is part of the message. All right, and what I like to when I'm talking to all these organizations that don't believe that guns are fair or guns should be owned, I'm a civil rights advocate. Guns are part of that fight, right? But one thing I noticed is I was like, hey guys, you know what? Where I come from, by their numbers, there's a mass shooting every single day. I am from the slums. There is no way. My slum look just like your trailer park. Same difference, all right? I am from the slums. But we had people getting shot on the corner in droves every single damn day. Nobody ever came and cared, right? You get a couple of signs, put the gun downs, pick up the fist, things like that. However, I value everybody's child here the same way I value my children. I love you just like I love my family. So whatever happens to innocent Americans bothers me. So when I see imbeciles hurting our kids, it touches me in a special place, all right? Big of a dude as I am, it hits me, and it hits me hard. But that being said, when something happens in the right zip code, all right, the right zip code, then all of a sudden we need legislation and control, all right? We need laws. When it happens in my zip code, I get police in prison, right? So what I pointed out to them is it's ironic that when it happens to a certain group of people, you convince them that all of a sudden we need national control. But when it happens to a group of people like me, you say, well, let the animals kill each other. So that's where they're weak, and that's what we need to attack. I don't think any of you are going to call me an animal. I'm not going to call you a racist or anything like that. So that being said, my time is almost up. There's one thing I want you guys to remember, and I want you to freaking own this, all right? There is a man that stood right here that was mentioned earlier by the name of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He had a dream, and it's standing in front of you, all right? That is something to remember. The shirt that I have on says, my ancestors paid the price. I'm just a receipt, all right? Nobody's asking for exchange. Nobody's asking for refund. Freedom, guys, comes in all flavors. It comes in all appearances. It comes in all genders. But what we have to get better at is understanding that. So I will end you with this. Gun control, at its inception, if you guys don't know, came around in the 1600s. That was before the birth of this nation. Gun control was started. It's just not cliche to say all gun control is racist. Gun control was started for people that look like me, flat out. It continues because of people that look like me. It just evolved to include people that look like most of this crowd. So now it just hates everybody equally, right? It just evolved. We need to take its evolution of hate and meet it with the evolution of truth, okay? That's what we need to do. So I'll leave you with this, and I want you guys to come along with me. Gun control is a lie, okay? It is. I want you to remember that. Gun control is a lie. We, this community, is the truth, despite any difference. So, gun control is a what? Lie. We are the what? Truth. All right, y'all ready? Yeah. Gun control is a lie. We are the truth. Gun control is a lie. We are the truth. Gun control is a lie. We are the truth. I'm Katie, I'm out.
Kevin is definitely becoming one of the most influential voices in our community. But for a long time, very easily seen, one of the most influential people in the community, in the world, when it comes to talking about guns, talking about firearms, is joining us today, Hickok 45.
Thank you. All right, discrimination right here. Okay. Hickok 45 here. More importantly, you all are here, and it took time, effort, and for some of you, a lot of effort and money, to get here. And I, for one, appreciate it. I know everybody does. So welcome. It's great to see everybody, all these patriots in one place. And of course, you know me, many of you, I've talked to most of you, I think. I even have designated a few of you to act like I'm saying something intelligent up here and maybe applaud once. But, yeah, there he is. But, I have a tendency to ramble, do I? Yeah, a lot, right? Not today. I wrote it down, so I'm out of here in a few minutes. So I want to be good and have respect for my fellow speakers, and better yet for you all. You've been here a long time. It's great that you're still here. So anyway, I don't know how profound anything I have to say will be, but it's great to be here. Great to see you all again here representing your communities, your family, your friends, and the gun owners who just couldn't make it, who really couldn't make it. You know, they had to work, and it's too expensive for them to travel. There's some legitimate reasons for not getting here. So you're representing them as well, and yourself, of course, your community. But you know, guess who else you're representing? It occurred to me. Well, you might not be aware of it, but there's a group of some fearless renegade types. They belong to an interesting gang a few years back, and you might recognize some of the names: James Madison, you know, Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, John Adams. And they were quite a gang, and in a lot of ways we pay homage to them, and out of respect to them that we gather here. I really believe that. Yep, our founding fathers, imperfect like us, but brilliant, unlike me, very brilliant, and could see into the future. And we just, the amount of respect for those people that I have, and I know you do, is enormous. Too bad they're gone. Wouldn't it be great to have one of them up here, have all of them up here? James Madison talking about these issues right now. It would just, where's Rod Serling when we need him, you know? Yeah, good point. They are. In spirit, they are here. And we're continuing that for them. But their voices are here. The Constitution speaks loud and clear for those who understand history, and for those whose brains have not been sedated by social media and whatever sitcoms and all the pop culture of today, people who actually think about things and can actually think deeply on a good day, you know. So these men are our inspiration. But we have to be careful. We have to be careful, I think, because we tend to see the primary obstacles in our cause as these gun banners that work in this beautiful building behind us. Yeah, we tend to think of that as, I don't know about the enemy, but, you know, a big obstacle. And, you know, the real obstacle are our friends and our neighbors, the other citizens who voted them into office, right? Look at the elections, look at the number of votes even the losers get, or the winners. It's those people that vote for them, that they represent. That's, I will say, the problem. You know, those millions of neighbors that voted them in, the gun banners in. They know they're gun banners, and they voted them in anyway, okay? Maybe because of that. So whether we like it or not, we're in a battle for the hearts and minds. Our neighbors, our co-workers, just a lot of the people we know. These people can actually determine whether we have even crazier, more oppressive gun laws. And as tough as it is sometimes, we've got to be the adults in the room, the calm, cool, collected ones who have the facts on our sides, as contrasted with the wild-eyed and the accusations we hear and the crazy claims we get from the emotional gun haters. We've got to keep our cool and use reason, common sense. The tempting reaction, of course, when we hear this crazy, this idiocy and this ignorance from the gun banners is to throw up our hands and just dare them to come and take them. You know, it's tempting for all of us. Well, we hope it doesn't come to that. It could, but we hope it doesn't come to that. We all get frustrated by this lack of common sense. And, basically what I think, we don't want to alienate those folks on the fence. That's our goal, not to alienate them. And, you know, what can happen in many cases is it just pushes them on over into that group of gun banners and the totalitarian, thinkers that we just hate so much, right? So what can we do? We wrap up with what I don't have all the solutions, but I think some things we can do are we can bring in new shooters to the sport and educate them properly. Yeah, often as possible. We can know the facts and continue to debunk the many false narratives that are perpetuated by the gun banners. We can quit making fun of gamers, where millions of folks of all ages, you learn about these cool firearms that we all have, because that's where a lot of the folks, young folks and older folks, are learning about firearms and developing an interest. We can make sure we're setting a good example, being safe, responsible gun owners, just ourselves, in every single way we can. We can remain calm and civil when we find ourselves debating, firearms issues with those who disagree with us. We can keep our focus on the Second Amendment, separated from party politics and religion as much as possible. There's nothing good is going to come from alienating large groups of people out there who might think differently from us in some ways. Again, party, political party, religion, whatever it is. It should go without even saying everybody, regardless of religion, political party, race, gender, ethnic background, color, height, sexual orientation, weight, shoe size, IQ, whatever, is welcome in our big Bill of Rights party, Second Amendment party, right? Certainly, IQ should not be a factor, right, or I would never be here. Last point. We need to avoid the divisiveness within our community, trying to eat our own. Some of us just cannot resist playing the I'm a better patriot than you game. It's kind of a game sometimes, and constantly being on the witch hunt for an infidel. They're out there, but we got to be careful not to be looking for them all the time or creating them. The last thing we need is anything that unnecessarily divides us. We're all in this together, basically. One of those gangsters I was talking about earlier kind of got it right when he said, we must indeed all hang together, or most assuredly, we shall all hang separately, right? Last thing, remember, the real rally, I'm not a good cheerleader, but the real rally is where? The voting booth, right? Let's all make sure we get there. Thank you all. Good to see y'all.
I don't know how many states we have actually attending. I think it's close to 50, 51, including the people from D.C., right? So we got D.C. in the house, so we got 51. California, I know we've had California up on the stage a couple times already. I make a point every year to emphasize how important it is that we support those kind of behind the enemy lines. And I know a lot of you have come behind enemy lines from much more free places today to peacefully have this conversation about why the Second Amendment is so important. And I see the sign over here, we came unarmed this time. Let's try to not get there. And one of the places that is the most oppressed is my original home state of New Jersey. We got my guys from New Jersey here. I know friends of mine. The guy I'm going to bring up here is also a friend of mine. He is gun for hire. He is a board member of the National Rifle Association, Anthony Calandro.
Wow. I'm honored to be up here. I came here in 1995 for a gun rally as a participant. I came here in 2010 to a gun rally as a participant, and now it's 2019 and I'm up here speaking. Yes, I'm that old. It reminds me, every time I come to Washington, reminds me of a quote from the first Star Wars where he says, "You will never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy." We must be cautious, and we all know that. So how many we have here from New Jersey today? Well, I'm from New Jersey too, and I'm tired of a lot of you out there telling us to move and vote with our feet. Because what I want to know is, we're running out of places to go. Where are we supposed to go? Virginia's hanging on by a thread. Florida, Texas. I decided to draw a line in the sand many years ago. And for us in New Jersey, just holding the line is considered a win. The gun-grabbing mentality starts in states like New Jersey and California and then spreads to your free states, the states you told me to move to. We need your support. We don't need you to make fun of us and tell us to move. Now, we've been fighting hard in New Jersey, and I believe that New Jersey will soon bend the knee, and we are going to have concealed carry. We have two major cases parked at the U.S. Supreme Court right now, the Rogers case and the Cheeseman case, and they're waiting for December 2nd to see what happens with the New York State Rifle and Pistol Association case. This could be a monumental time for all of us in the 2A community. The Supreme Court is the only place that hasn't been bought yet by Bloomberg and his ilk. I believe, and I've been saying this for years, that states like New Jersey with their oppressive laws are going to backfire sooner or later. And we are going to get a ruling from the Supreme Court that's going to send New Jersey, New York, California kicking and screaming, and they're going to identify and they're going to recognize our Second Amendment right. What a lot of people don't know what's going on in our country right now. Let me make it clear for you. Why are we offering so many free things for criminals and illegals? Because we need a two-tiered system in this country to move to full-on communism. Right now we have the first tier, which is the protected class and the political elites who have armed guards 24/7 and live behind walled estates. Then we have the second tier, which is the criminals and the illegals, because our government, they want a welfare state because those are secured votes for them to stay in office for 40, 50, or 100 years. It's free stuff over freedom. We've become the third tier, the law-abiding, tax-paying citizens. Our tier is in their way for total control. And what do we possess that they want to take away from us? Our firearms. They know that's what stands between us and total communist rule. I'm telling you, I've predicted this for years, and it's going to happen. We are under attack nonstop, 24/7. Who knew George Orwell's books, Animal Farm in 1984, would be available in nonfiction now? If you don't know what I'm referencing, go to a library. We all need to wake up and mobilize, okay? We are running out of time. We need to draw a line in the sand in all 50 states. It is our fault. We have gotten lazy. We've allowed the country, the politicians, to rule us. It happened in the Roman Empire. What took 5,000 years is only going to take 250 years here. What can we do? First, everyone needs to vote and get their friends and family out to vote. Let's send the career politicians packing home and let them live under the shitty laws they passed for us. Second, we need to stop the infighting, state to state, organization to organization, for our survival. There's no room for egos anymore. This is a fight for our way of life and our freedom as Americans. And third, we need to make our voices heard. Get involved at the state and local level. It's great civics lessons for your kids. Go to town hall meetings. Cause a stir. Make your voices heard. Because remember, it is we the people. And unity and activism is key. And God bless you all and all you patriots for being here today.
This next speaker I've gotten to work with a lot over the past few months. He has changed my view over the last few months of just how easy, really, if you ask, it is to get grassroots activity in our community. I think the cliche in our community has been that it's hard to get people to come out to a rally. It's hard to get people to give up a day in the hunting stand or an afternoon at the range. It's hard to get people to skip work and spend the money to come out and do things. Well, you guys have all proven today, our speakers have all proven today that that cliche is wrong. And one of the people at the forefront of grassroots activity in this space, Anthony Garcia.
Wow, this is one hell of a crowd. Holy shit. All right, my name's Anthony Garcia. I'm president of Save the Second. What I want to talk to you about today is duty. Our duty as citizens of the United States, because believe it or not, we do all have a duty and an obligation to maintain our Constitution, and today specifically, our Second Amendment, because the Second Amendment is the right which protects all the rest of them. The Constitution is a gift given to us by the Founding Fathers. It's our birthright. It's the thing that has kept this country as free as it is today. But that does not mean that it can't be changed or warped and interpreted in ways the Founding Fathers didn't intend. And we've seen plenty of that, especially with regards to the Second Amendment. Now, I believe the right to self-defense, thus the right to keep and bear arms, is a natural right. It's a right that didn't need to be granted by any man, and it's a right that can't be taken away by any man. It simply is. The Second Amendment is supposed to be a guarantee that the government would not interfere with that natural right. However, that's exactly what's happening. And now we're locked into a struggle with those who would wish to use government to deprive us of that right. And it is our duty and obligation to protect that guarantee of our natural rights, to protect that Second Amendment. Because if we don't protect it, we lose it, along with everything else resembling freedom in this country. After the Constitutional Convention in 1787, Ben Franklin was asked if we had a monarchy or a republic. His response was that famous quote, "A republic if you can keep it." That means that we, as citizens of this country, must be actively involved in protecting our rights. It means that we cannot sit on the sidelines. We cannot hope someone else will do it for us. Only we can keep our republic, our Constitution, and our Second Amendment. Now, we can fulfill our obligation to protect our rights in many different ways, but the most powerful of which is grassroots activism. And that means you standing here at this rally, you watching this on your live stream, you listening to this 2 years from now. This means you doing what you know you need to do. Grassroots is without a doubt the most powerful weapon that we have, because after all, the buck stops with the voters. I believe that a handful of determined, smart, and mildly angry individuals can change the world through grassroots action. Sometimes, as activists, we pool our resources, form organizations to become more powerful. And as members of those organizations, we still need to hold them accountable to that obligation of protecting our rights. That's actually what my organization, Save the Second, does. We're focused on fixing the NRA on a fundamental level, returning them to a place of efficiency and effectiveness, as well as updating them to modern gun culture. Bump stocks, anybody? There's actually some petitions going around. If you are a voting member of the NRA, you can sign those to help get term limits for their board of directors. But no matter what, we, the people, have to take the fight to the gun grabbers. We have to rally like we are here. We have to testify in our legislatures, our town halls, and city councils. We have to campaign for pro-gun candidates. We have to take the fight right to them, right down into the trenches. And in the end, it will come down to you and what you choose to do. Will you do nothing, or almost nothing, and allow our rights to be slowly and completely eroded? Will you choose to let someone else do it for you while putting in none of your own time, money, or effort? Will you allow the gun grabbers to continue dismantling our basic and fundamental guarantee of a natural right to self-defense through the ownership of arms? Or will you choose to fulfill your obligation to your Constitution, our freedom, and our Second Amendment? Will you choose instead to fight to keep this republic? Will you rise and meet your duty to preserve, promote, and expand our right to keep and bear arms? Will you walk away from here today after hearing the words of so many of these awesome and amazing speakers and do everything you can for our Second Amendment? I hope you will. Our freedom depends on you getting involved in this fight. My name's Anthony Garcia of Save the Second. Thank you for listening.
Anthony Garcia, Save the Second. We appreciate Anthony. We're winding down, and we've saved the best for last, so don't anybody go anywhere. We've got more to come, just a little bit more, but we are wrapping it up. I want to touch on something. History is so very important, and knowing your history and understanding One thing that I'd like to point out is that the Second Amendment isn't just a protection. It was looked at as an obligation. With all due respect to Brother Dave Grossman and his sheepdog, wolves analogy, he left somebody out. That's folks like my wife, the porcupine. Now, bless her heart, she's a sweet woman, but you do not want to cross her. She's not going to run to the gunfire. She's going to huddle and kill you when you come up on her. That's her approach. She's a porcupine. We've over the years created laws to try and make us all porcupines. And that's a problem, because one of the obligations of the Second Amendment isn't just stopping the government from infringing, it's also our obligation to do something when it needs to be done. There's a wonderful, wonderful essay by a fellow named Jeff Snyder. It's called Nation of Cowards. And by golly, you need to read it. Jeff Snyder, Nation of Cowards. I'll put a link to it on my website at firearmscoalition.org. Years ago, I've been in the gunfight my whole life. I grew up in it. My dad was big in this whole thing. And years ago, I was the young guy in the room when everybody was lamenting about how everybody in the room was old guys. Well, now I'm an old guy. One of the other laments that was going along all of those years was that, man, this is a really white crowd. And one of the first was Brother Ken Blanchard with Black Man with a Gun. I met Ken in about 2008 at a gun rights policy conference, and I actually missed an award that they were giving to me as the Grassroots Activist of the Year because I was out in the hall talking to Brother Ken. He is an absolutely fantastic man doing fantastic work. He's all over the internets on his podcasts and things. Ladies and gentlemen, Brother Ken Blanchard.
Welcome to Washington, D.C., brothers and sisters. Thank you for standing. Thank you for being here, for showing your face to these, your politicians who serve you. I'm just here to remind you for a few minutes that gun rights are civil rights. When I was 2, my stepfather brought me here to hear a man who said, the time is always right to do the right thing. Can I get an amen, somebody? Today I represent the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. There are many people in the religious communities, Christian, non-Christians, Jews, Gentiles, Greeks, you name us, all of us have a belief system, whether it is in the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob or not. But what brings us together is our right to love life, liberty, and freedom. That's what makes America different. Can I get an amen, somebody? I'm not like one of those who preaches and has a security guard team follow me around. I'm not one of those guys who preaches disarmament but has a concealed carry permit. I'm not one of those who preaches one thing and does another. There's another word for that. You and I know, yes, you and I know that guns do not equal murder. I represent that small group of people who have the moral courage to say no to racist gun laws. I represent the ones who have the moral background and backbone to protect their families against domestic terrorists and against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and still go to church on Sunday. I remember those old guys who became the deacons of defense and justice. I remember those and know those who take training, who are trained and stand watch for those who are innocent. It's good to be with you guys today. I stand before you as one who remembers and has read the holy book where David said, "Blessed be the Lord, my strength, which teaches my hands to war and my fingers to fight." Thank you, brothers and sisters, for standing up and not bowing down. Don't let what you fear could happen make nothing happen. Dr. King also said, in the end, we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. God bless.
Thank you, bro. Appreciate you, man. All right, bro.
Brother Ken Blanchard. You know, we say a lot about do something. Well, this next speaker, he does something. He's done 40,000 individuals free firearms training. 40,000 straight up. Ladies and gentlemen, Edgar Antolon.
How you guys doing today? Yeah. It's got to get louder than that. Yeah, buddy. 40,000 students. That's how many students I've instructed. In fact, when I flew out on Wednesday, I did a class, went to the airport, flew here. When I leave tomorrow in the morning, guess what I'm doing back in Colorado? Doing another class. I say that not just to show off, because hell yeah, I'm showing off. I got to show off. I used to feel bad about saying that and showing off, but that's my work. That's my legacy. That's what I've left. But I also bring it up because you could do the same thing. I'm nobody. I'm an ESL Mexican from the hood who has instructed 40,000 students. When I started talking to people about these classes and my vision and what I was going to do, people obviously laughed at me. You're going to do this and you're going to do it for free? Nah, it can't be done. It's not going to happen. Well, here we are 10 years later, 40,000 students later, and it's happened. But you could do it too. It's been mentioned before, but it has to be said again. It doesn't matter who I am and what I do if you're not doing anything yourself. It doesn't matter what my homie Maj is doing if you're not doing anything yourself. It doesn't matter what Pastor Ken, Pastor, if you're not doing it yourself. It can't just end here. It can't just end today. You have to start it right now in your own little community, in your own little neighborhood. It may not be 40,000 students. It's probably going to be 80,000 because your 40 and my 40 is going to make it 80. I often make fun of these people because I don't get invited to the cool kid stuff, and I don't. I missed 6 pounds of bacon apparently today. Good for, yeah. Now I'm just talking shit. But it's okay not to be part of the Cool Kids Club. It's okay. It's okay if we do it in our own little community in silence. We don't have to be extremely loud about it. We ain't got to be the one out there getting the prizes and winning this and winning that. Because if we're losing our freedom while people are winning this award and that award, it doesn't mean shit. It doesn't mean shit. I'm one of these weirdos who's a 2A purist. I got called that, a 2A purist. Well, I am a 2A purist. I believe probably very differently than a lot of people that have spoken today, and that's okay. Because at some point, we have to understand that we have to be on the same team. Because if we're way over here and they're way back there, we're going to lose this shit. We're going to lose it. The reason the Walgreens team, that logo reminds me of the Walgreens. I don't know. I got here Thursday morning. I'm like, holy shit, everybody works at Walgreens. Like, what the hell's going on? But the reason they won is because they did it as a team. It wasn't one individual player. Now, if history has anything to say about it, next year they're going to suck. It's the truth. People get on this championship high, and they get on this championship hangover. That's kind of where we're at right now, on this freedom hangover, and we've forgotten what it's really all about. Just words now. It's just words. We got to change that shit. We got to take it back. Some of you guys in the crowd are two-way purists, and you know who I'm talking about. I'm with you, but we got to play this shit. We got to play this game together. If we don't play it together, we're going to look like the crazies. We're going to look like that one little loser that just went off the deep end. We got to fight this together to take this shit back. We have to take this shit back. I'm just going to keep repeating that stuff, and you know the drill. It's just we got to take this shit back. It doesn't matter if you're up here speaking or down there listening. We got to be heard, but it's got to be a collective. Folks, my name is Edgar. The last name is Antillon. Yes, I do speak Spanish. For those of you that want to speak Spanish to me later on, we could talk about that stuff, maybe get deported together. My name is Edgar Antillon. My company's name is Guns for Everyone. It's not just the company name, it's also what we believe. Guns for Everyone.
Most of you know that my primary role in the firearms community has been as a defensive firearms educator. Defensive firearms education is incredibly important. Again, our right to keep and bear arms is based on a defense of our country and our way of life. A well-regulated militia means a well-trained and educated individual American gun owner. And one of the people at the forefront of educating American gun owners and anyone interested in personal defense is our next speaker, Mr. Todd Fossey.
Hey, Rob, thanks for putting me after Edgar. I really appreciate that. Give him a huge hand. Is he unbelievable or what? 40,000. Can you believe that? I train people myself. And my speech and my message is going to be a little bit more serious. I wrote it down so that I could stay on schedule, unlike some of the other people here today. You guys got my 6? You guys got my 6? Dear friends, there are those that live among us who have it in their DNA to watch over the flock. They were literally born to defend others. Who among you is in that group? It's why they live. It's why they breathe. It's what they are. They call themselves sheepdogs, guardians, and citizen defenders. They spend their lives in constant and ongoing education and training that is grounded in reality and evidence. Because they understand that preparing for such an awesome responsibility is not a line that one crosses, but a path that one takes. This is not a novelty for them. It is a burden that they accept. Am I right? They are not vigilantes. They do not see themselves as heroes. They are not looking for trouble. They are not on patrol. Quite the contrary. They do not love their guns. They love what they stand for. They prefer to live in a world where they look up the word gun in the dictionary and can't believe that such a word ever existed. However, they understand they do not live in that world. And although they live in a world that shames and vilifies them for what they are, they stand firm and they stand strong in their commission, in defense of themselves, in defense of those that they love, in defense of what is good and innocent, even in defense of those that might oppose them. Am I right? I'm calling on all sheepdogs, guardians, and citizen defenders to be bold in the sharing of their convictions with the world. I'm calling on churches, businesses, and organizations to arm, educate, and train your clergy, faculty, and staff on a regular and ongoing basis. Can I get an amen? Frequently publicizing your training through the press and social media, and in doing so, giving permission to others to do the same, creating a broadband deterrent to violence and tyranny. No more soft targets. That is the mission. No more soft targets. Say it with me. No more soft targets. No more soft targets. This is the mission. I'd like to close by thanking you all for being here today. Thank you all for being who you are. Give yourselves a hand. Thank you for spending your valuable time and your hard-earned money to lend yourself to such a virtuous cause. Thank you to those watching from home and supporting from afar. Thank you to the silent majority who support this cause privately. However, may I strongly suggest stepping out to join the cause publicly. We welcome you with open arms. The world needs you now more than ever. And for those of you that don't own a gun, sell your cloak and buy one. The Spirit of God is a spirit of liberty. May God bless you all. May God bless this great nation. Thank you. Thank you. God bless you.
Grassroots. The individual American gun owner, the individual willing to take action. You've heard about that a lot. Someone who walks that walk every day. She's on the internet. She's in people's faces. She was in Kamala Harris's face recently, calling her out on her hypocrisy. We the female, Carrie Sloan.
That's great. He had me following Edgar and Todd, which is great. Edgar's just really pissed that there was no chorizo. Just so y'all know, that's really what Edgar's problem was there. I'm going to come at y'all a little bit different today. Can you hear me okay? I'm losing my voice. Okay. I want to talk about something a little bit different. I want to talk about what perception is. Perception is defined as the immediate or intuitive recognition of moral, psychological, and aesthetic qualities. What if I am able to stand here today and change your perception of why and how you fight for the Second Amendment? Would you be more determined to fight for it? Would you? If I give you a better reason than shall not be infringed, are you willing to listen? Well, that's why I came here today. I'm going to change your perception. What do you see when you look at me? Do you see a strong, professional woman? Do you see my boobs? Is that? That's cool. I identify as a woman. It's cool. Do you see a fearless, unapologetic advocate for Americans' constitutional rights that isn't afraid to stand in Kamala Harris's face and call her out? That was pretty cool, by the way. Do you see a powerful voice for the women's right to self-defense? I just lost my speech. Sorry, y'all. Right? Yeah, that's right. Do you know what you don't see when you look at me? You don't see an emotionally fragile, broken woman who couldn't make a sandwich because I feared it was going to be wrong, and then I was demeaned for not making that sandwich at all. You don't see a woman who made excuses when she was verbally abused in public. You do not see the bruises that covered my entire body, handprints around my throat from being picked up off of my feet. You do not see the cracked teeth, and you do not see how I was unable to eat for 5 days because my mouth was so severely cut and my jaw so swollen that I couldn't open it. You do not see the permanent bodily damage that I live with every day from being beaten bloody. This is my story, my evolution. Now I'm all gonna ugly cry. This is my evolution from being afraid of making any decisions for fear of being punished to standing here in our nation's capital to convince all of you to make the decision and take action to stand up for the Second Amendment. But now, with a different perspective on why you need to do it. Don't misunderstand me. I don't stand here without fear. Quite the contrary, I am scared that women like me all over this country will continue to become byproduct casualties in a battle over our constitutionally right to bear arms and self-defense. We are all here today unified in a common goal: to support our natural, God-given right to defend our lives, our property, and to stand against those in government attempting to remove those constitutional rights. We all know gun control laws are dangerous, and I'm not going to waste my time telling everyone what they already know. What's more important is that you understand that you all are really needed for more than just showing up to a rally to support the right to bear arms guaranteed to each and every American citizen by the United States Constitution. I am lucky to be standing here a survivor. She's lucky to be standing here a survivor. 1 in 3 women are lucky to be survivors, and 1 in 6 men. I will not forget my men. No one should ever have to feel lucky to be the survivor of abuse. So I'm here today to ask for your help. I need all of you to amplify my voice for women who are and will continue to be casualties, not only of abusers, but of unconstitutional gun laws that prevent them from being able to defend themselves. And I keep losing my speech, you guys, I'm sorry. I need you to speak out against our laws, our culture, and our broken legal system that enables abusers to continually endanger women's lives, as well as perpetuates, supports, and even encourages women to be victims, forcing them to become dependent on the very government that endangers them with limiting their choices or completely denying them the ability to arm themselves for self-defense. I need every one of you to return home and educate your friends, your family, your local government, and your school systems regarding the dangerous and even deadly consequences of red flag laws and other gun control laws and how they are used against victims by their abusers. This strong, mouthy, unapologetic woman standing before you is terrified. Not for myself, because I learned the hard way and I stay strapped. All the time. Well, most of the time, not here in DC, but most of the time. But I want you to speak for all of those women And yes, men, and even they, the LGBTQ, they're just as much of a victim. They're Americans too. We can't forget that. And they live in fear, hiding, and still being abused, and will one day become a photo and memories at their own funerals because their mental health diagnosis of PTSD, depression, or anxiety was used against them, and they were left unable to defend themselves because of a bullshit red flag law written by a self-absorbed, power-hungry politician that pontificates about how he knows what's best for we the people. Not only do we need to bring forth this message, we also must demand that these representatives fix their broken judicial system rather than continuing to enact more gun control laws that are ineffective and potentially deadly. I need you to not just stand here and cheer and agree, oh, I just called y'all out, and then return home and do nothing. I speak not only for myself, but the millions of others who can't speak out because they're scared, hiding, or dead. I need you to use your voices and your vote to say you will no longer tolerate their patronizing, condescending behavior, and that you will make it clear to these elected representatives they will no longer be in control of how we choose how to defend ourselves. Do not let me down. Do not let your wives, your mothers, your grandmothers, your sisters, your nieces, and your daughters down. Are you willing to not only be the voice for our constitutional right to bear arms, but for also women dying because of these gun control laws? Are you? Are you willing to be their voice? I ask every one of you now, will you join my fight? Thank you.
This next gentleman is going to be familiar to a lot of you. He's also familiar to, I think, most American gun owners and even people outside of the gun community as a representative of a lot of the angst and concern that American gun owners have about the future of our gun rights. He is a strong advocate for them and a great voice for us. Military Arms Channel, Mr. Tim Harmson.
I gotta lift this up so you guys can hear me. Yeah, okay. So, everybody hear me okay? Good, because all gun control laws are illegal and unconstitutional. Our founding fathers never intended for us to follow unconstitutional laws any more than people in the military are required to follow an unconstitutional or illegal order. So, I just wanted to start things off so we're clear. Does everybody here agree? All gun control laws are illegal, unconstitutional? Say it for them so they can hear you. All gun control laws are illegal and unconstitutional. Thank you. Yes, repeal the NFA. I'll get there. Let's talk about the NFA. My grandmother, when she was born, God bless her soul, she didn't know what the NFA was. She was born before the NFA was enacted. In 1968, I was born. Okay, so I gave away my age. If you follow the channel, you know how old I am. But the generation just before me didn't know what an FFL holder was. There wasn't a licensed dealer, and they never filled out a 4473 form. But my generation, I grew up with that. Since I've been able to buy a gun, I've had to fill out a 4473 form. And I'm jumping gun control laws here, but I'm trying to make a point. I'll get to that here in a second. So, In 1986, now this is my generation, I remember when this happened. In 1986, that's when Reagan signed the Hughes Amendment into law, banning the legal ownership of newly produced machine guns. See, now sometimes I think I'm alone when I say all gun control laws are illegal, but clearly I'm not in the minority. So, the generation born after 1986, I've had discussions with them. They're like, why would you want a machine gun? They never grew up with them. They didn't walk into hardware stores like I did, and yes, I said a hardware store, and see an M16 hanging on the wall that cost barely more than an AR-15. They didn't know that. They don't miss it. Why don't they miss it? Because they never had it. In I gotta get my dates right, 98, those of you standing here didn't have to ask permission from the FBI to buy a firearm. The NICS system, right? Somehow we didn't have, going back to our founding of our nation, we didn't have Columbines and things like that being reported in the media and everybody all crazy. So how do we get by without an NFA? How do we get by without the 86 machine gun ban? How do we get by without a NICS system? It's this incrementalism, people, that we're being sold. And this is something that is incumbent upon everybody here and everybody watching this. You cannot accept this incrementalism. When there's something bad that happens, you can't have a knee-jerk reaction and say, oh, we got to pass a law, going to fix it. When's the last time a criminal said, oh, hell, that's against the law, but I'm not going to do that today? Never. It doesn't work that way. The only people that give up their guns when guns are banned are the law-abiding. The criminals will always have them. I'm rehashing things that have already been said here by other people that have lived under repressive regimes like in Venezuela. All right? We can't let that happen here, but that's what's happening through incrementalism. Today I stand before you as an unarmed man. Yes, Capitol Police, today I showed up without a gun, in case I'm in a crosshair somewhere, but there's a beautiful sign over there somewhere. There it is. We came unarmed this time. Look, folks, these representatives are supposed to represent us. They also took an oath of office, and that oath of office requires them to uphold and defend the Constitution. And any time that they stand before you and say, well, I can make you safer by passing another law, they're lying to you. It's a power grab, and it has to stop. It's the incrementalism. It's death by 1,000 paper cuts. How we got here today, me standing here in front of the Capitol, the beacon of freedom around the world, and I can't be trusted with my Second Amendment rights while I'm giving you this speech. That's BS, and that's what we have to stop. And let's, no mistake, guys and gals and everybody in between. I will not comply. If you pass a law that says you're going to disarm me, well, I can't say what I would do because the red flag law would probably have me arrested. So, do I stand alone, or how many patriots out there will not comply? I will not comply. You can take your gun control and stick it where the sun don't shine, because patriots aren't going to let it happen. Our founding fathers put the ultimate power of government in our hands, and that is enshrined in the Second Amendment. They didn't give us the right to keep and bear arms. They enshrined it to guarantee it, and it is not to be taken away by any politician. And if they try, it's our job, our obligation to remove them from office. Yes. I get wound up if you're watching me on a live stream. Anyway, guys and gals and everybody in between, I am the last speaker. But don't go anywhere. I want to thank everybody for coming out, because I understand that it took a great commitment, time, money, and effort for many of you to get here, taking time off work, lying to your boss, all the other things we had to do to get here. Thank you for coming out. There's something very important that we haven't done yet, and I want you to stick around for that because it's important. Everybody, thank you for your time. Thank you for coming out, standing here, listening to all these great speeches. And always remember, I don't care what you do, I won't comply.
Thank you all for proving everyone who said this wasn't possible, wouldn't happen, and most certainly wouldn't end on schedule, proving them all wrong. The speakers, if all the speakers could come up here behind me, they all committed to an idea that you all fulfilled. Share their messages. Share your own messages as grassroots advocates. Before we leave here today, we're going to do something. Usually it's done at the beginning, but these things are awkward to end sometimes. So I'm going to have Maren Carlson join me up on the stage, and she's going to lead us all in the singing of our national anthem. Travel home safe. Second Amendment unites us under a common idea that's worth fighting for. Thank you for coming to the Second Amendment rally.
Can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say